just because I don't want to play the music.
Does it start and I'm shirtless? I'm like, let's.
I love Nicki Minaj. She was here a couple of weeks ago. She's so beautiful. Her skin's so beautiful. I said, Nicki is so beautiful. Her nails are they're like that long. I said, Nicki, are they real? She said, she didn't want to get into that. But she was so beautiful and so great.
So what is it like hanging out with Sean Hannity? Let me show you. It's barbecue, ribs, pretzels, sausage, and a beer, pickles, and baked beans. That's what it's like here in the great state of Florida, the free state of Florida. He's very generous. He's funny. He's fun.
Oh, stop.
And we're excited about the new podcast.
Very excited.
Congratulations.
By the way, it's going to be R-rated this morning.
No. Is it?
Oh, I'm going to be real. Keeping it real.
Keeping it real with Sean Hannity. Hanging out with the Hannister.
Yeah.
Hello, humans. This is the February 2025 edition of your Power Report. I am Dan. I am making sure that y'all can even hear us properly. Sounds like you are. I could maybe be a little bit louder. Forrest, can you say something?
What's going on?
Okay, let me wait for the delay. Oh, you're good. You're good because you're on my main thing. And I'm just gonna raise mine a little bit higher. Yeah, and you can bring yours closer to like your natural position. I'd rather you, because of the tight focus here, I'd rather you move the microphone than move yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry about that dynamic. As y'all can tell, this is a crossover episode for the ages. I am here for possibly the first in-person Power Report since before we called the show's Power Report, when it was the Syndicate 23 political report during COVID, and Bam sees Sean and myself were talking about Trump bombing Iran. So like, it's been a while since we've had like in-person guests like this, and
I'm so happy that's over.
Yeah, it's been so
the new cycle just moves on,
The funny thing is there were so many things you could have meant there, like there was COVID being over, or not like over, but of course like the lockdown period of it. It's still around. People wear your masks outside, and please like get vaccinated, get boosted if you can.
Before they make it illegal.
Remember when that was a joke? But yeah, like you could have been talking about COVID, but you're definitely talking about bombing Iran, which is on the menu once again. So that's lovely. But yeah, no. Forrest is, for reasons that don't need to be necessarily described, but it happens to be in town, and so it is great to have you here in person. So if we start yelling at each other and get like real,
it'll get physical.
If we get real medicine, yeah, exactly.
We'll lock lips. We'll lock hit.
As you can tell, it's been a great time. We had a little night on the town, as you will. Beer, sushi, poker. We did all those things, and by that
cigars.
I mean
cigars that look like little dicks.
Exactly, especially those ones. No. What was really was watching TV shows, Mad Men and Smiling Friends. So that's our poker. Our sushi was bodega food.
Those tacos are pretty good.
Very good.
I was like, I think I'm taking a gamble by getting the shrimp.
No. I'm just like angling it towards you a little bit more, but yeah, you're good.
I think I was like, I'm taking a gamble by getting shrimp right now, but
you got those are 3 shrimp tacos.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a tofu burrito, but so that'll be our sushi. The poker was Mad Men.
It's shrimp. It's the seafood. Close enough.
Yeah, and the Mad Men was the poker, and the beer was
beer.
The beer. So anyways, and we'll continue to be as folks know, we're not necessarily doing the streaming Power Report, although I felt like if you are a member on Twitch, you know that I use that to record the streams because they end up turning out really well on there for me to edit down. But yeah, don't tend to do streams, but this one just felt kind of fun. We'll do it live. It'll be a little bit of an old school thing.
Well, you can't go to Brooklyn, hang out, and not and not record a podcast. They actually now in the new Mamdani regime, right? If you don't record a podcast, they take off your hands.
Yeah, and if we have to do
also if you steal a joke,
if we have to,
that's Sharia law now.
That's a real big issue in New York City as well. So I'm glad someone's finally getting on it. That and the poop on the sidewalks, which we actually will be talking about.
That actually is so
God
real.
willing, or inshallah. Yeah, I know you were walking last night, and Literally, it's like it's a. I love how you do the Jersey Club, like pa pa pa.
Oh, so I was thinking about skiing. I was like,
very similar thing. But we will be talking a little bit about
skiing in the Jersey Club.
We will be talking a little bit about Sharia law and Doggate in New York City in a little bit of time. All jokes aside, but yeah, we still have a proper
Sharia law.
Yeah, we still have a proper rundown here, full of lots of things. I'll save the RFK video for a little bit later once we do some serious shit. And like need a little bit of a break.
It's not serious shit.
Later, we're warming up the voiceover. We're warming up. I think let's in a simple BAM fashion, let's start with the international stuff. There was a lot of the Board of Peace pieces, and I like this one thing that Sachi added to show how it looked like an intro to Curb Your Enthusiasm, because that was some stuff we were definitely referencing. #baldfuck. But let's see some of what Trump is doing over here at the Board of Peace
and we
meeting.
Certainly we're Board of Peace. Yes. My thing is they said the other day when they were announcing it, they said peace is the most important thing, and I said peace stands for pedophiles Epstein alive. Pedophiles
Keep going.
Epstein alive. Check. Eretz Israel. That was my piece.
That was so worth the landing. Thank you. Oh wait, hold on. I muted the wrong thing. My bad.
I think we have to smile. Yes. A lot of good things. Does everybody like the music?
Yeah, it's a perfect song.
That's good music.
Does everyone like the music? And everyone's just standing awkwardly looking around. This isn't even all the world leaders either. This is they're missing a lot.
Kushner is a world leader now.
Yeah, that's kind of like the worst part of it. All right, they're zooming in. Marco Rubio's counts as a world leader now. This is all. Everyone's all around, except Netanyahu. Since like some of these.
Well, Netanyahu couldn't go because it's in Geneva.
And
they said that if he stepped foot onto Switzerland, they would arrest him.
God willing. But yeah, so again, Trump's Board of Peace, which is a complete sort of like scam of a concept, right? Like it is Trump gets to be the leader of it for life. It's only the countries in the world that are in active, arguably corrupt deals with the United States that are on there. Like I saw Qatar, I saw the United Arab Emirates. I think one of these countries has a military base they're building near like Montana or Wyoming, where they get to actually station some of their like military members there. So that's just going to be an entirely funny thing.
It's $1 billion. If you want to be a member of the Board of Peace for life, you actually have to give Trump $1 billion. I'm not kidding about that. That's like one of the stipulations.
We live in hell. But it's as we're doing these like fake kabuki theater sort of like Board of Peace things, and if there were any sort of just society, maybe Donald Trump would also be on that list with Netanyahu of people who couldn't set foot here without getting arrested. Maybe one day if the cholesterol doesn't get him first. But
you realize like Switzerland really does play its cards right, because it's like a lot of I feel like Switzerland has a lot of international bodies already in it, and now they're hosting in Geneva the Board of Peace. It's like Switzerland knows that no matter what the international order is, right? Like they're still like we will host some of it anyway.
That's a fair point. Put
your money here. We will not discriminate.
I did want to contrast the idea of the Board of Peace with what we're hearing right now. Of course, I have to do this every single time. We're recording at 2 Eastern in the afternoon on the 21st of February, 2026, and we don't know what's going to happen. We're approaching the 4-year anniversary of the whole Russia-Ukraine blow up, but we're looking, and this is the contrast I keep trying to get at, while we're talking about Board of Peace, Trump potentially going to war with Iran, which Bam was Freudian slip. Forrest was just talking about how the first we were talking about how the first
some people call me the white bam.
Yeah. And many people are saying this. No, but we were talking about how the first episode of Power Report was about this premise of Iran being attacked, and it's like, okay, well, the news just doesn't change.
Yeah.
And now we're full circle of like, well, that can mean a lot of things with COVID, with Iran. I told you I would get there at one point, but anyways, this is something you really want to discuss on here. I can find some articles or links, but we can just chat it out with what's going on.
I mean, it seems like they really have ramped up the military, the actual technology of it, right? So it's like you see more and more military hardware being moved into the area of Iran. You see all of the the giant carriers being moved into the Gulf there. Like it's pretty insane how fast this kind of stuff happens.
Basically everything that was done on the pretext of Venezuela, which they were telegraphing, oh, maybe we'll attack it, maybe we won't, we'll do these little so-called drug boat strikes here and there. All that stuff seems to be happening again with Iran. Just for instead of the drug boat strikes, there was the 12 days war that Israel and
where they said, oh, we took out all of their capabilities, right? Like all of their capabilities of building nukes, and or in any capacity or any kind of their entire facility. And they actually didn't, because the facility's underground and no one can really tell how much the bunker busters actually damaged anything there.
Yeah. I don't know what Christina's responding EU WTF for. Hopefully it's like one of the things we played on video and not us.
Yeah, what the fuck, you guys are hanging out?
Yeah.
I think somebody said a slur in chat. Maybe that's why.
Oh no. That's terrible. Well, at least on thankfully in I'm not necessarily seeing anything in the StreamYard chat, so
but it might just be us. I don't know what Christina was referring to.
I don't think we're saying any slurs on air.
Yeah.
Anyways,
well, it's not my fault. I have early onset Tourette's, but only off camera. So
it's a special condition. It's the opposite of what Whoopi Goldberg has. Anyways, when we're talking about around here, this is a different situation from Venezuela. This is a different situation from a lot of other, these little couple-day expeditions or things where America doesn't really care about. It's definitely going to be different from Iraq. There's not going to get some they're going to obviously do the mission accomplished thing, but it's not going to work. Iran is just fundamentally, even as weak as its regime is, it's not the kind of, in my opinion, it's not the kind of place where you can just conquer easily, just based on the terrain alone, but also just the fact that, and we've talked about this on previous episodes of Power Report, and I'll end here and let you talk, but Iran is a place that is like anywhere else in the world not monolithic, and there's so many different opinions there. They're pretty united in disliking their government, but possibly even more united in disliking the United States.
Yeah, or
at least the leaders of it.
Well, and there's the government, kind of one of the smarter things the regime there has done is a lot of people work for the state. So if the government falls, right? Like if the top at least of the government falls and they can no longer pay people, a lot of people lose their paychecks, which is you want to kind of do that if you're kind of running an authoritarian regime of any kind. You want to make sure that there's buy-in from the actual population. Iran also has a pretty decently sized middle class, although obviously with the sanctions and stuff strangling it, that's kind of changed. But a lot of people see themselves as, as more liberal middle class kind of people within the makeup of Iran. And it's it is not a monolithic society whatsoever. But also that doesn't have to mean that they want people to bomb them. You know what I mean?
This. I've made this analogy, unfortunately, before. I don't think I'm saying anything controversial here when I think the vast majority outside of the trolls that might be actually watching this, in which case, hi, please leave a reaction and a comment to this video. I'd really hate if you did that. But it's not controversial to say we want Trump out of office, whether it's, by 2028 or sooner, or, God forbid later. We don't want this, and the regime and the horse he rode in on with his base. We want them out of power. I don't think that's controversial to say. If another country were to come in and do that, there might be part of me that's like, okay, well, he's out of power, but I want the agency for that. I want the people in the side of this country to have the agency for that. It shouldn't be, let's go slight xenophobic here and say like Russia or China, or we can go to our allies and let's say, no, it shouldn't be Canada or Mexico who come in and get to decide and, put in their own person. Like, we want that decision.
You think about it this way, right? When it's a different country.
Same with Iran.
Yeah. Well, Trump is going to put in either the Shah, which I think even some of the Shah's friends in the United States. I mean, he's never really lived in Iran. Like,
the Shah,
his life.
Again, not to do that thing where I always warn in Power Report of like making the wrong comparisons, but the Shah of Iran is like that one woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize in Venezuela. It's like, okay, mainstream media has been treating, in the United States, has been treating you as the rightful opposition leader for like 2.5 minutes. But everyone already knows you ain't got the sauce, right? And that's the same thing with the Shah of Iran.
The difference between the Shah of Iran and Machado, right, is that Machado has actually lived her life in Venezuela, and like she's not broadly representative of the opposition. Of course, the opposition is a lot of different factions kind of coming together into like a consolidated mass. And the guy that they actually elected in the opposition was like 85 years old and is still kicking somewhere in there. But it's like the Shah has lived in the United States pretty much his whole life, like since his dad fled, right? So you have like this aged man that's been living in Maryland, I'm pretty sure, and then either Maryland or Virginia, like very close to the heart of American power, in like a mansion that was gated. That's like a very famous mansion, and he's been living there in the United States this whole time. So it's like you're calling for somebody. It would be like like imagine Russia decided. I mean, they I don't think they have the power or the ability to do this, but let's say they decided to depose Trump. And then an American that's been living in Russia for the last like 40 years, they're like, oh, it's this American. It's our favorite American guy.
Yeah. It's not a you don't even have to get into the specifics. So like that's a great point. The top level is the agency belongs with the people who live in that country. That's a consistent analysis you can have as someone who identifies as a leftist, as someone who identifies as a human rights advocate, that whether it's Palestine or the Congo or Iran or the United States or Venezuela or any part of the world, it should be the people who decide through fair and free, literal democracy, not just representative democracy where you have this weird electoral college thing, which we do have in the United States. So that, makes it interesting, but it should be the will of the people. And that is, I think, the fairest way that we have right now as like a global, planet of beings who organize ourselves in this way in order to do these things. But it's just it's very worrying to see how Trump might be preparing to do these things. He's given this whole, it might be 10 days, maybe we'll come up with a deal, maybe we won't. Either way, it's Trump positioning himself of like, okay, I'm going to call the shots for Iran, just like he's doing in Venezuela. So I have a point about that I've made before that I'll say after Forrest gets in.
So it's either the Shah or it's the MEK, which kind of has even less claim to any kind of legitimate power, but they've been staying within like different places in Europe pretty much. They've been like an exiled group, and it's very funny that the Shah has some people on his payroll, and the MEK has a lot more people, including Rudy Giuliani, on their payroll in America doing their lobbying for them. So you'll see these people fight each other within the right to like decide who the rightful leader of Iran is from outside, like the rightful exiled leader of Iran. And a lot of times you'll see Giuliani like in his little like lispy voice talking all this shit about the Shah, being like, he's never even been to he hasn't been to the country since 1979. you want this guy to come in? This guy's a fucking loser. His family is no longer in Iran for a reason. That's why I support the MEK.
I love that you're doing this like particular voice with a lisp.
Yeah.
What I'm really understanding is that Forrest has got some really good vocal impressions, a range that I definitely don't. Okay, looks like chat is good. Also, hey, Pinkerbell, Pep Talks TV, Cosmopolitics. Paige Larson said, "Are we going to be at war with Iran for 20 years as well?"
I mean, if we were to invade Iran, yes.
Yeah, because like that's not the kind of thing. Iran's not the kind of country like they are. I hate the whole first world, second world, third world thing, but they're like a Russia or Iran or like, a Russia or an India or France or Germany, where like, they may not have like all the nuclear weaponry in the world or like, like firepower in the world, but they can scrap. like they could bump, all right? Like they have the ability to withstand that, as they showed. And again, like, this is not an endorsement of everything the Iranian regime has done. But they, especially in the Trump era, have been incredibly sort of like, for the photo here. Yes, hello. Anyways, this is not to be like an apologist for the Iranian regime, because we've seen the sort of like human rights things that we care about on the show be violated in Iran. But in the Trump and the Biden honestly era, they've shown a lot of level-headedness of saying like, okay, we're being attacked by Israel, first strike. We're being attacked by the United States, first strike. Our diplomats are being hit, our proxies are being hit. And there might be some like, reasoning and logic for these things, right? But ultimately, they have shown a lot of restraint at times where other countries, other less level-headed countries, especially like the United States, would have attacked. And like there's only so much you can do with that. So that point of like, can this last for 20 years? I'm not going to say that like Iran can outlast the American military as far as firepower goes, but they can cause very decisive strikes. They've shown their ability to withstand and penetrate the Iron Dome. They've shown their ability to through the missiles that they send to other countries, namely Russia. They've shown their ability to develop and some drones. Of the most capable, I was going to say the most capable drones in the world, some of the most capable military drones in the world. So it's not going to be an easy fight. And, we have military bases up the Wusa up there. And so I'm not saying like Russia, North Korea, these are states that have the capability to, if on a bad day, they could launch nuclear weapons for the United States, probably maybe China as well. Iran is not that. But they can make it hell for military bases, and to make it all full circle, some of these motherfuckers who are sitting up here in the border peace, who are trying to do this deal with Israel on the side just before October 7th.
I was looking at, there's like this meme that was going around and it had like, I'm pretty sure there's like 5 military bases of different countries around Iran. And it was like, why would Iran move their country so much closer to our military bases?
Mm-hmm.
American logic, the logic of American empire.
Is that similar meme that's like, why is your country above our oil?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's right. And I think that there's also like a bit of a show of power in the fact that they've been able to telegraph all of their strikes on Israel or on U.S. military bases to the extent they have, because I feel like telegraphing them to that level where it's like, okay, we're going to strike here, here, and here, and then they do, and it gets through the Iron Dome at points, even if they have to try to use like the Arab countries who they see as like the natural enemies. Although, after 10-7, I think that changed a little bit, but they still showed a pretty marked ability to be like, hey, we'll shoot down Iran's missiles coming in Israel before they even get there. But I think through telegraphing it to that level, it's also in its own way a show of power, because if you're a country like let's say Iraq that used to send like the missiles at Israel, right? Like none of them ever got through the Iron Dome, and like none of them ever they never hit the exact place that they were intended to. And it's a little bit so it's like it is a show of power in itself to be able to telegraph your attacks.
Yeah. I was saying like this is the last point I was going to make a couple points ago, but now I'm trying to get good at remembering these things. You're all good. Is that like we've talked many times on PowerPoint before, where like if you had a Trump or you had even like a Biden or any administration that tried to do multiple military excursions in different hemispheres around the world, like sun never sets on the British Empire type shit.
Yeah,
America ain't got that smoke like that. It's no longer like just post World War II, like the 1950s. We're not dominant like that. We don't have the treasury backing like that. We don't have the money, is what I'm saying. And especially we don't have the sort of like broad foreign support. Like I don't see a lot of different countries who are going to be coming to our rescue for shit that we got ourselves into, fights that we like had our own problems with. So,
well, I mean, and also the people that you would expect to come to the United States is, to join a coalition with the United States, right? And some of them still, obviously, even if Trump is kind of, shit in their mouths or whatever at this point, are willing to still do that. Like he leaked the text between him and Macron. It was like, we could do great things together. in Iran. We can do great things together. Why are you doing this to me? And he leaked that text message,
Right.
where he's like, but still, like the stuff with Canada, right? Like Canada's joined every war that we've joined, which they always try to use as like a point to be like, what do you mean we're your best friends? It's like, yeah, I don't think the United States thinks of it that way. The fact that you joined the Iraq War and killed a bunch of Koreans, like I don't think we're not thinking about it as transactional as you guys are.
That's real.
But I feel like Trump's purposely antagonizing the people that he would most need. I mean, besides Israel, obviously, who he's just kind of blown every chance he gets. But like, you know, the countries that usually would make up the United States is a imperialist coalition. He's done pretty much everything he possibly can to antagonize them.
Agreed. There's been this little thing, and I was, flipping through TV in the morning, in the afterglow after we woke up this morning, and but I was, watching Fox News, as I always do, in my post-coital mornings.
You can't believe you said those things about Mexicans after watching Fox News. I knew it was bad for you.
It's that's why we weren't recording. That's the best part, right? I mean, you signed the NDA before bed, right?
Oh no, I think I just broke the NDA.
Well, my people will be in touch with your people. But we were watching Fox News, and they were talking about this, fake controversy, I want to say, in between the Pope and America joining the Board of Peace, and like it was kind of ridiculous. I'm gonna play it here and get folks' reaction. And let me just make sure. I gotta do some special sound work to make sure that we can hear it on our end, and y'all can hear it on yours end, and you don't hear feedback. So sorry for the delay here, but one sec.
In our time, the weakness of multilateralism is a particular cause for concern at the international level. A diplomacy that promotes dialogue and seeks. In our time, the weakness of multilateralism is a particular cause for concern at the international level. A diplomacy that promotes dialogue and seeks consensus among all parties is being replaced by a diplomacy based on force by either individuals or groups of allies. War is back in vogue, and the zeal for war is spreading. The principle established after the Second World War, which prohibited nations from using force to violate the borders of others, has been completely undermined. Peace is no longer sought as a gift and a desirable good in itself, or in the pursuit of the establishment of the ordered universe willed by God, with a more perfect form of justice among men and women.
So that was very, I don't know, like that's in flowery, religious language. But
cut it off before he said, "Go Bears."
The Bears.
The Bears.
For those no Tim Pool, but yeah, it seems, like the antithesis. I mean, sorry, the main synthesis of that is that the way the so-called Board of Peace is acting, acts individually as countries, is the antithesis of, the Christian version of peace.
Yeah. Well, it's also, it's just Trump trying to build his own UN, especially like the whole point of the
his whole UN. Yeah.
Like the point of the UN is every country gets, I mean, it hasn't worked this way, but every country represented in the world, and sometimes they really don't get represented because we're like, oh, we don't recognize that as a country. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, it's pretty much every country in the world coming together to solve problems in a forum where they can all have an equal say, or at least an equal voice. I mean, does it work out that way? No. But is that still something that it feels like an overall good? Yes. And the point of Trump's thing is like, just the fact that you have to pay $1 billion and Trump's like leader for life already kind of undermines the very point of something like the UN, because it's Trump's voice that matters. Trump can kick anyone. It's in the rules. Trump can kick anyone he wants out of the Board of Peace. It's like that's the exact opposite like concept of the United Nations.
Yeah, it is.
I said it like it's one nation. I said United Nation instead of United Nations.
The United Nation.
That's Trump's Board of Peace. The United Nation.
That's
one.
the United Federation from Starship Troopers. It's just like
Yeah.
all the countries have come together. So yeah, I did want to know, just like, for the record, that it's less bad in other places. Because here's a country for, I gotta remember not to do that. The former South Korean president Yoon Suk Yeol, who had done a similar sort of like trying to challenge the democratic election things, has been handed a life sentence in jail. Just like, less than a year, actually just a little bit over a year, after his own moment where he declared martial law in a late night televised speech, claiming that anti-state forces sympathetic to North Korea were coming in, and like a pretty much a blatant power grab.
I love that that's their version of like when when someone's like, they love Hamas, they're coming into the country, they love Hamas, or they're like, oh, they love Mexico or Russia, or like one of the countries that we have like antagonisms with, like their version is just North Korea. They're like, they're sympathetic. They like those other Koreans. They like the ones without the star, we're the star-bellied ones, and the other ones don't have a star on their belly, like the sneeches.
the world's wild like that.
I was thinking about this though the other night, because recently, I think it was like a month ago, we covered Memories of Murder, the Bong Joon-ho film, and it's
on Movie Night Extravaganza.
On Movie Night Extravaganza, the movie podcast that me and Cosmopolitics, the person from the chat that said ew, but no, I was thinking about the fact that movie takes place in like the 80s, in the backdrop of these large democracy protests that happened in South Korea after like their second dictator basically had stabbed their first dictator, like let him bleed out on the side of the road after a late night party where everyone was partying, and it took a violent turn, I guess. And they remember having a dictatorship, and they remember that vividly, and like the inability to express their democratic democratic ideas and principles within the memory of the lifetime of like middle-aged Koreans, right? So they take the democracy a lot more serious because they remember what it's like not to have it.
Yeah, I mean, it also reminds me of the Bolsonaro situation in Brazil, especially too.
But again, it's another country that within our lifetime, but within our lifetime has had within the lifetimes of people that remember it, has had a large democracy movement that that overturned a dictatorship and remembers what it's like to have a dictator. And I feel like the U.S., nobody in our in our country has that. So like when it comes time to stand up for democratic principles, I think there's just an assumption that anything that happens an automatic assumption that anything that happens in our country, as people are still saying at this point, the greatest country in the world, like if we do it, it's democratic by default.
I absolutely get what you're saying, because there's this overall thing in business and organizing referring to institutional memory.
Yeah.
And very clearly the United States has not got it. We've had it. That one quote from the Fairly Odd Parents, they've had it too good for too long.
It's hard to have it. This has been a country for 250 years, I guess, this year. And it's like, it's hard to have institutional memory for that long.
Oh yeah, just on the basis of like physics and humans not living.
Yeah,
for
and
250 years.
But
also like there's just I think I always go back to George Washington, my favorite and the least racist president we've ever had. No, I'm kidding. But this whole thing of like, from the beginning of this country, I don't like these founding fathers arguments because they're often made by like constitutional originalists who are conservatives. Yeah. But George Washington was spitting when he said political parties are a rot, and we should like absolutely work against that kind of like infrastructure, because once you make facts once you in a lot of American history, rights have become a partisan issue. We claim to be, a country where all men are created equal, and then women don't get the right to vote. And then, white non-landowners don't get the right to vote. And then, of course, black people, there's been poll taxes, discrimination against Asian communities, indigenous communities, Central and South American communities. Like, of course, like all this stuff is like kind of continued to sput it on, right? But of course, they got all that shit wrong. But the thing about political parties and the way that from making rights into a partisan issue all the way to, I think in 2020, when Trump made the pandemic a partisan issue and masking a partisan issue, like we are so beyond us, like we're really like past a point of no return with a lot of this different stuff.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of these people out of office, like and like just out of the body politic in general, kind of as a result. And because like I guess like I say all that to say that what Washington was predicting, like it was so apparent in the beginning of this country, and for 250 years, from multiple generations, people, and again, like it goes back to that original thing of who are the original people who were able to vote: white men who are landowners and have a lot of wealth and power.
Yeah,
which like is a direct line, pretty much.
Which,
the
by
Epstein
the way,
files.
Washington was the largest landowner in the United States. At
Yeah,
the time.
So it's like, you know, like game recognized game on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But power can corrupt the political system in America as it's set up, even if it was set up as it was set up back then. But you know, through everything they had, and it's kind of a miracle that for 250 years or whatever, or yeah, like it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about the Washington's factionalism speech, which is what you're talking about. It's pretty much the same idea as like when Eisenhower stopped being president, and the last thing he gave was the military-industrial complex speech, where it's like somebody who had probably done more than anyone to create these conditions steps down, like is done being president, and his last speech is like, guys, the thing that we've just been doing, that's going to go bad. Because at that point, right, the end of Washington's presidency, one of the reasons he didn't run for a third time, and we have the third term tradition. I mean, he wanted to go back to his farm as
the second term tradition by
yeah. But like we have a tradition of not letting presidents run for a third term. Like we have 2 terms and that's it. Is because by the time,
and we only codified it after FDR. I know people are going to mention that, but just be fair.
Yeah, but that was like kind of a tradition, which we're learning under Trump. A lot of these things are just somebody did it earlier, so that's kind of the way we do it, right? They're kind of uncodified principles. But until FDR, there was nobody had run for people had run for a third term. No one had gotten a third term. Because like Grant ran for a third term. There's been like a few people that have run for a third term, but so yeah, so that speech about factionalism reminds me a lot of the military industrial complex one, where it's like somebody recognizing as they step out of power that like the thing that's happened for the last few years that they've kind of participated in more than they'd ever admit, right? They're like, hey, I'm just warning you guys, like what I'm leaving behind is bad, like, because that was the point where Jefferson had split off from Hamilton, and Adams had taken the side kind of Hamilton, but not really, and that kind of created a situation where Hamilton was able to kind of negotiate. He was so like pissed off with Adams by that point that he kind of threw his lot in with Jefferson the next election. Like the factionalism thing really did kind of break down really fast. It was like a wheel coming off of a cart, and
that's real.
Now it's everything, right? Now just breathing is a partisan issue.
That's very real. There's one really good thing you're like, light bulb you're unlocking there, but maybe I'll come back to it. But it's just like good points overall.
Well, I want to say one of the chat comments was Brazil's dictatorship ended in 87, and I had to double check it. So did South Korea's. So it was kind of like the year of democracy, but somehow that doesn't really get telegraphed to us the same way, I guess.
Yeah, and like 87, like that's like much closer to when Forrest and I were born than when our parents were born.
Yeah.
So like that's like very recent institutional knowledge there. That's important.
That a lot of people bled and died for on the streets. Like let's be real about that, right? Like we talk a lot about something like Tiananmen Square or something, where the inability to kind of fight the state and create some form of democracy that seemed like it was nascent, kind of got crushed in that moment. But like allies of ours were kind of like sending tanks to the streets and fucking killing a lot more people than China had in the Tiananmen Square like incident.
I do want to update a little bit on Gaza before we like kind of like shift out of world news into other things. As we said on Power Report, as Bam predicted, Trump freed Palestine. That being said, Israel is stepping up attacks and a land takeover across the occupied West Bank. This is, of course, in addition to the settler violence that has been happening since before October 7th, but it's really ramped up really like after the ceasefire and really caught a lot of folks' attention. And another thing,
they codified the ability to do it pretty recently, right? Like I'm pretty sure they had a thing with it was like, oh no, we can kind of take whatever we want.
You might be right about that. I haven't
I mean, I'm not a large follower of Knesset politics, and they would have done it regardless. But
yeah, you know, like again, like that's one of those things where you were talking just a moment ago about how Donald Trump like his administrations have shown how a lot of these different practices that we have are just traditions and not like things that have been codified. Israel is kind of on the other side of those things where like, okay, we don't have to like codify these things in law because we're all on the same page. Like, you know, like fuck the Browns.
But then over time, right? They slow drip them. So it's like for the longest time they're like, oh, Israel's the Jewish state, and then in 2015, I'm pretty sure is when they, or 2018, I can't remember which year. That's when they passed the nation state law that they've been trying to pass for the longest time. And people are like, I don't know if we want to put it down on paper. This is a Jewish state, and you know the prime minister must always be Jewish, even if we allow people in the Knesset that are Arab. Like this is a Jewish majority state. That's our principle from here on out. And it's like everyone was on the same page as far back as you know the first like Ben Gurion, like right, like Ben Gurion was but he was smart enough not to put something like that on paper, and people still like hold up Ben Gurion and they're like, just look at our socialist prince.
I mean, that's kind of the point I was saying, and like the last thing I want to mention here as well.
Yeah, see, they legalized annexation about 1 to 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and also want to mention that the Gaza death toll, according to Lancet, was a third higher than official figures. So they have done a number of reports in different, you know, cases here. I think earlier on, like maybe halfway through before Trump did the quote unquote ceasefire, they predicted it could be as high as 150,000 people. You know, you can just move the mic if it's like, you know, you have to like reach around it and stuff.
Give it a reach around.
Anyway, I knew I was walking into it when I said that. But let's see. I'll just read from here. The number of quote-unquote violent deaths in Gaza during the first 10 months of Israel's genocidal war exceeded 75,000, far higher than the official figures at the time, according to a new paper published by the Lancet Global Health Journal. The Gaza mortality survey estimated 75,200 quote-unquote violent deaths in Gaza between the 7th of October and the 5th of January 2025. So that's like even a low figure considering the dates between October 7th and January 5th, 2025, and we're now nearing the end of February 2026.
Yeah.
And so you know, the numbers the Lancet was talking about a lot earlier, that was like it could be near 150,000, I think is very likely. And you know, I remember right when October 7th was like, you know, when this like latest Israeli crusade into Gaza and the occupied territories in the West Bank started after October 7th. I remember seeing news reports that were like, okay, Hamas's ranks could be anywhere between 20 to 40,000 people. And Bam and I were like, sus. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But you know, even if you take that as face value, the upper end of that estimation was 40,000. The conservative estimates of deaths are 50,000. The likely deaths as of a year and a month ago are 75,000. And we're getting all these other stories around about apparently, like, you know, thermobaric bombs having been used in Gaza that we didn't even keep track of.
Yeah.
That are capable of heating human bodies to the tune of 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, temperatures that are like as hot as the cores of stars, to the point where there are no remains.
Which you sound crazy if you talk, which very real thing. They're like Israelis are still relying on the fact that being like, oh well, they've dropped bombs that heat the bodies to the point where like the bodies no longer can even appear. You almost sound like like an insane person just explaining how those work, and it's like they're relying on that as part of their strategy.
I have a little bit of a point on that. I think like it doesn't sound like, you know, I guess it depends, because like I knew about thermobaric bombs that have been used in the context outside of October 7th, been used by, you know, possibly even America, actually. I don't forget exactly where I remember it, but I've known about thermobaric bombs for, you know, the time I've been studying, you know, political science and political economy seriously, which is, you know, I started in college 2014-ish, something like that. So good 10 or 12 years. And so I've known about these things existing, but there's always, and I spent a lot of this past month talking to normies. It was very relaxing. I recommend folks do it. But I would get on certain things. I've talked about this ability of like, you know, I want to hear what people are saying and not necessarily get into political arguments as I would when I'm doing this Dan for the Internet character. But I would hear these people, and when you get down to their logic, like they assert something, like in this context, I was sitting next to a flight with some pretty wealthy folks who were on a golf trip to the middle of the Pacific, and they were saying, yeah, I don't know how Elon Musk is able to deploy Starlink in places like Ukraine and Iran without the United States' permission.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, wait, I'm sorry, you think that and I tried to use the words like, you think that the private sector needs the public sector's permission to do things internationally? And
It's also insane to pretend that he doesn't have the U.S.
but like, like that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, so like, obviously my opinion is Elon Musk is not sending Trump texts on like, okay, can I do Starlink in Ukraine? Can I do? He kind of does whatever he wants, because in any context he does whatever he wants and deals with the consequences later. That's one of the worst things about like tech overall. But what I'm getting at, like the overall reason I went into that whole diatribe, is that like people don't want to believe how badly the systems have crumbled. A lot of people believe a lot of different lies about how society works, and there's checks and balances. There's different. It can never get that bad, because in a lot of times, in a lot of these cases, they've been able to live life to a comfortable or ignorant enough sense to feel that these systems are always in place and protecting them. And I think that goes back to this thing about like, we have lived 250 lucky years in this country.
Yeah.
And I say we, not neither necessarily us or our ancestors, but like,
I have the
and
song
the universal
from,
in the
I have the
country.
song from Nashville stuck in my head because someone was talking about Nashville earlier, like that I was texting. Like, we had to do something right to last 200 years. I don't know if you've ever seen the Allman movie.
No,
it was happening.
If you ask me if I've ever seen a movie, the answer is probably not. I'm not as film expert as you are.
It's like an Allman movie that he made in 1975. So it was like on the eve of the bicentennial. So like the song is like, we must be doing something right to last 200 years, and now it's 250. Like we've fallen farther and farther away from any kind of institutional memory of what it takes to maintain democracy, I think.
And like to the little extent of democracy that we do get, we're being able to see these like Epstein class cabals that are have their hands in so many different aspects of government and finance and industry and business and tech and policy, all the way down to connections behind the company that takes yearbook photos for kids in most of the United States.
Yeah,
like it's just so like in response to your point earlier about how people seem to believe Trump, or people seem to like have these different things codified or whatever, the way that happens, because I think I've always been kind of, especially since Trump got elected, I've been like, what were the people around the world in democracies in America and England, in Germany, whatever, what were they thinking in like before World War, like in that low period in the 30s before World War II really started kicking off? Like, what were they thinking? How are they acting? And it was this like numbness. It was this belief that, that can't happen again. We've passed that. Like, it can't happen again. And I think that's just like the biggest lesson that if we make out of this, we got to like continue to hammer on that, like, never again wasn't enough. Clearly that didn't work. It can't happen here is something that we can never take for granted as a built-in democracy in society. We need to actually build the last thing. We need to actually build the safeguards and have the accountability to make sure that there's some teeth behind these new first principles, make sure this stuff doesn't happen again. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it can't happen here. It was like one of those things where even like as a slogan at the time, it was like, I don't know about all that, because you look at like FDR and the the point a little bit before, like between the two world wars, when FDR took power, one of the first things that happened was like a coup attempt where they tried to get Smedley Butler to be basically the man on a white horse for the business interests, like the business plot. And FDR downplayed it at the time because he didn't want to freak people out in the middle of the Depression that like, hey, they could have kind of cooed me like right as I started launching New Deal programs. And it's like, I don't know.
No, truly.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to touch on with the Lancet and the Gaza Health Ministry numbers is that it never took into account the health ministry numbers, right, never took into account like any of the secondary starvation, disease, any kind of
True.
The inability of people to get to hospitals who had lifelong conditions. Like that was one of the big things about when the pictures of the starving children started coming out. One of the first gotchas that Zionists tried to pull, they were like, oh well, that person actually had that health condition before. And it's like, yeah, but I don't think starving them helped. Like I don't think starving them helps their fucking health condition, dude. Like,
yeah, it's like, hey, you're accused of murder. It's like, well, I shot someone with diabetes.
Yeah,
it's like, yo,
no, or like, I mean, it's literally the George Floyd thing where it's like, so you put the knee on someone's neck and they suffocate. It's like you test their urine and like, well, there was fentanyl in the system, and it's like, yeah, but that's not what killed him. We saw what fucking killed him. We saw the knee on his neck. You can't turn it around and then say, oh, it was actually a fentanyl overdose. We saw it wasn't a fentanyl overdose. And even if it was a fentanyl overdose, you stuck your knee on someone's neck. Part of the whole thing about a fentanyl overdose is that you stop being able to breathe. That's why watching that video 60 times last year was
inside joke. We were talking about Black people not wanting to watch those videos of trauma and then forcing white people to like eyes wide shut style watch like the George Floyd video hundreds of times. All right, let's go off of the world stuff. I think that was a lot. We covered,
we are the world.
We covered quite a lot of things. We talked a little bit about Cuba in the beginning, right? I think we like.
I don't think we didn't talk that much about Cuba. We talked about
we did Board of Peace stuff. Let's like. I'll give you like one moment on Cuba and then we can go on. Because like, that's also in the sphere of things that Trump is talking about potentially acting on in a Venezuela similar sense. I don't know, because we're sending all the Venezuela troops all the way to Iran for this next little boondoggle.
Yeah.
But like the fact that there's oil shortages.
That is a saving grace. I mean, not really a saving grace, but about Trump versus like the Bush era neocons, right? Where it's like Trump doesn't have the attention span to maintain. Like he doesn't have the attention span to send troops into a country, do the thing. He's like he says
actually like hold it.
Yeah, and actually, well, the Bush administration sucked at holding it, but yeah, I mean, like at least try to finish the job. He's like, oh, we got Maduro, that's enough.
Yeah,
but
like I just want to mention the oil shortages, like because the way the Americans are seeing this is like, oh, you can no longer fly to Havana because there's no jet fuel for the planes to fly back. So that's
all in the steel beams.
That's inconvenient for us. But there's been a blockade of Cuba. There's a flotilla that a number of different people are doing, similar to the Gaza Freedom Flotillas, to go and deliver some aid to Cuba. But in a country that uses oil for electricity production, obviously for the movement of vehicles and transportation and commerce, and it's not this oil. It's it's a blockade and sanctions similar to what have crippled Iran and made it to a state where their capital city is having troubles getting fresh water to their people. In Tehran, of course, in Iran. But Cuba's going through very similar things as well. So I just want to set the stage on that and kind of talk about this in the context of America first foreign policy.
Yeah. Well, we call it a blockade. I mean, it's an embargo, and it's an embargo that goes in and out, right? Like it's always an embargo. It's been an embargo for 60 years, but for a while it was an actual blockade. The blockade kind of lessened after a certain amount of time. After that, right, there's been times where you're allowed to bring in humanitarian supplies. A lot of times because we've sent planes in to bomb stuff, and then it's kind of been a deal that we've had to make with Cuba. But you've been allowed to send humanitarian stuff because it violates international law to strangle somebody to that level. So you're sometimes allowed to bring in humanitarian stuff. It's countries sell oil to Cuba. One of those countries, obviously, one of the biggest ones was Venezuela that was selling oil to Cuba. One of the big parts about instead of putting Machado in, keeping Delcy Rodriguez, is that they've now had to stop selling at least like the main shipments of oil to Cuba. So we're already using our and they've kind of been it's Marco Rubio that's kind of been pretty open about like, hey, we can use the Venezuelan situation we've created to fully strangle Cuba as much as possible, at least. So the oil embargo completely devastates any kind of to a country that was already having electrical problems and like often had to cut off their electricity at certain times and was having like a pretty extreme levels of deprivation. And I mean, I'm not saying that they've always handled it in the best way possible, but like it's largely caused by like the giant country 90 miles from their shore.
It's like what we said before, like countries, people deserve the sovereignty. Cubans deserve the ability to choose their government in Cuba, etc. Soul Life in the sort of semi-live stream chat that we're doing here was asking, didn't the U.S. block Mexico's aid to Cuba? I wasn't able to find an immediate article on that, at least at time of recording. I did see
they did. I think one of the big things that Scheinbaum and the Trump administration were deciding on is that pretty much they got threatened that if they supply anything to Cuba. This is what I remember.
Well, let me. I have an article over here, so like
Okay.
I just want to contextualize with that. Al Jazeera was reporting as soon as February 12th, 2026. This is the 21st, so a little over 10 days ago, that 2 Mexican ships bearing humanitarian aid docked in the harbor of Cuba's capital, Havana, as the United States continues efforts to cut the island from outside fuel supplies. And this is from Al Jazeera staff and associated news agencies helping them out there. And there's still some talks, like, Mexico is still working with the United States on figuring out exactly where, how the aid works. But yeah, at least, my cursory Googling, and Forrest is looking right now too.
I'm pretty sure there was like, I mean, I'm glad that Scheinbaum did it. I'm pretty sure that the story a couple weeks ago was that the Trump administration was threatening Scheinbaum, like, to, end the kind of unsteady peace they've kind of brokered together if they were to send humanitarian oil to Cuba, which was kind of a big part of the thing, which obviously Mexico has oil reserves, Venezuela has oil reserves, like that's a lifeline, like it's a pretty big one.
Yeah. Any last words on Cuba before we move on?
Any last words? No, I think I'm good.
Sick. I want to go to this article. It's a really good article, and it's like it's not a paywall, but you need to be subscribed to Hellgate, a New York City local media outlet.
Which, if you live in New York City, by the way, and you have the money to subscribe to Hellgate, it's a very good organization.
No, yeah, I compare them to for our West Coast heads, LA Taco. They're really good at just covering the culture of things to do while you're going out, good food spots. But they've also done some of the best local journalism, especially at a time when a lot of these local news outlets, like the I don't know, this little rag called the New York Times and this one little random scrap kind of like Mad magazine called the Washington Post, have gutted their local news agencies.
Yeah. Well, Hellgate was when Zoran was appointing Tish during the election, they're one of the few local news organizations willing to actually hold his feet to the fire
while supporting Zoran during the primary. So there's some really good work there, and I don't really rank a news outlet on the politicians they support, but I say all that to say that they were pretty instrumental in breaking the corruption, Eric Adams corruption story. That too, yes. I say all that to say their article right here, New York City is drowning in dog poop, was very needed. And there's a lot of anecdotes here because there's a big snow in New York City, and then the snow kind of led to freezing with freezing temperatures and wind chills that hit the negative Fahrenheit, 20 and things like that. And the first sort of piece this article goes, for the past week, I've measured my life in frozen turds. 3-block walk to the subway, 10. A trip to Whole Foods, that's a 30-turd journey. Crossing the street to buy milk at the bodega, that's 5 lovely clumps of shit that I have lovingly named Get Me the Fuck Outta Here and ASAP. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Fat
Randy.
Yeah. I don't even know what to call him at this point, but basically there was a tweet from someone named Nadine Kiswani. I'll read the tweet and then I'll want you to give some context to who this person is, because fuck if I know. But let's get this off of there. Yes, I know I can do that. Let's just get this That's ridiculous.
The thing that really blows my mind is like,
I'm sorry, let me read this. Nardine Kiswani says, finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Like we said all along, they are unclean. And this is kind of in response to the whole dog shit that's been caught in frozen snow and just like stuck there for the past month and a half on the city streets epidemic that's been going on. Congressman Randy Fine makes a post like quoting this, saying, if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. And then Randy Fine does like a little quote tweet essentially saying, for context, this is the leader of one of the key mainstream Muslim groups that supported Mamdani, with that comment about the indoor pets that I just read.
Yeah.
Forrest,
so
go.
This is not one of the key mainstream Muslim, like the leader of one of the key. Nardine Kiswani is the founder of Within Our Lifetime. So she's Palestinian American. Her main thing is ending like the genocide and ending like all of Israel's attacks on Palestine pretty much. And during the primary, she kind of reluctantly supported Zoran, but during the general, she was one of the first people to go, all right, like this Tish thing is a deal breaker for me, and got so much fucking heat on Twitter over it, and had people like really just screaming at her because just like, and so since then she's kind of turned on Zoran on a bunch of different things, including like just the bringing the encampments back and kind of the way that he's kind of treated unhoused people and like each of those things she's taking a lot of heat. So it's funny to like pretend that this is like a leader within a mainstream mainstream Muslim constituency, whatever the fuck that means, inside of like Zoran's coalition, because out of all the people,
means Muslim.
Yeah, I know
Muslim about town. I know but like
like
just to be clear for the audience, like this is fucking racism. This is like as a thing, like and it's not just even racism, like because this is done for trans people too. Like, oh, you're one of those trans activists if you're just a trans person who has an online social media account. It's a very similar thing. But go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like, and I said this to you this morning, Randy Fine is basically America's Ben Gvir now, because there's like everybody got to take this tweet, right? Like all of the Jewish American Congress people, and there's like there's like a coalition of Jewish American Congress people, which they fall across the ideological spectrum, from being like fairly liberal, progressive Jewish Congress people to being like far right, despicable. But they all got to come together and say, no, this is racist. This comment, Randy Fine. And I feel like Ben Gvir kind of had the same within Israeli society as the same thing, where it's like the policies that they subscribe to vis-a-vis like Israel and Israel's genocide and all of these things might actually be exactly the same. And even privately, they might have the same politics as somebody like Randy Fine. But the fact he's kind of this overweight, disgusting, obese creature that's like just spouting off the most vulgar, racist version of it allows politicians within America. And I'm not just saying that it's Jewish American politicians that there's all kinds of politicians, but they were the ones that came out most forcefully to say like, no, this racism against Muslims is bad. Like, and then they say we should censure Randy Fine. And then of course they're probably not going to do it because he's one of Trump's biggest supporters in Congress, and they have not been very active about opposing the Trump agenda in that way, right? But like even like the farthest right Republicans are able to be like, I don't agree with this one.
You're describing a dynamic essentially, right? Where like the Ben Gvir Randy Fine comparison is that, okay, well, Ben Gvir has the ability to say something so outlandish that
or
everyone can or do things so outlandish that everyone can go, okay, well, listen, we're not that crazy.
Yeah,
we're our own different kind of extreme, but it could be worse. It's not like the look what you made me do defense. It's the look I could have done worse defense. Like, listen, I only broke my wife's jaw. I could have broke her hip too.
Yeah, or it's just it's the ability to take somebody that might have the exact same policy positions as a lot of people. I mean, vis-a-vis at least Israel and Palestine, right? Like might have the same exact policy prescriptions as the other people, but the way that they say something, the language of it is so clearly over the top and racist that you're able to say, look, this is a different kind of politics. This is racial politics that I don't subscribe to. I just want to give unlimited money and weapons to Israel to do it. or I just want to make sure that no Muslims, there's a Muslim ban, but I'm saying countries with Muslims in it have a Muslim ban, not the Muslims that are already here. Like, you're able to make these distinctions with that person. That
distinctions without differences.
Yeah, distinctions without policy differences.
The reference frame says, "I'm one of the freaks that loves snow past the first week of it. I am assuming you don't live in a place where it is dirty as hell with like a lot too many people living all together, because Soul Life makes one point, like snow is okay, just complicates things like Ubering, car shopping, parking, etc. All things I need. Although I will challenge Soul Life how often you're car shopping. But like I like literally walking in the neighborhood is clumps of dog poop that used to be on like snowbanks. And it used to be really bad because like all the pollution and the congestion that was just like in the air from like shipping trucks and lorries and 18-wheelers that are passing by, that's all settling within the snow. All the stuff that's underneath car undercarriages because of the dust and grime from the entire season's road starts to get caught in the snow. Dead animals, other just biohazards get stuck and frozen in the snow. And then this is why I start to go in defense of Congressman Randy Fine. Obviously not in defense of the statements, but I appreciate when, whether it's like to be the most like extreme caricature of thing or not, I'm at least glad they're saying it, because we all know that there's a large portion of Americans who care more about dogs than people in this country.
Yeah.
And like, I think that like the Hellgate article, which I want to shout out who wrote it, Olivia Byrne, forgive me, I'm not in my usual setup. Olivia Benjamin,
or Ben Simon, I don't know.
Yeah, Ben Simon, sure. But like a lot of that article, once you like unslight paywall it, is about the disruption of the social contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that there should be these hierarchies. Ideally, we treat dogs and people on as equal of a framework as makes sense given the relationship, right? But the idea that there are a lot of people who are like, oh, it's terrible when the police assault people of color, or they assault immigrants who may or may not be allowed to be in the country. Oftentimes they're allowed to be in the country, and there's administrative paperwork where they try to use the flimsiest of reasons possible to get people to jail them and put them in concentration camps that are currently having incinerators put on them. You sound crazy for saying that, but it's all fucking true. But like you have an erosion of the social framework when not only do you have a country where people will be more upset about violence against dogs at the hand of the police than they are violence against people at the hands of the police, when one is happening much more at scale. And at the same time, you have so little connection to the social fabric that you're not picking up after your fucking pet when they defecate on the street. And I don't know why I need to say this to people who can understand the mouth noises coming out of me in 2026, but feces contains bacteria that are dangerous for human beings and animals and everyone around. So like this whole, I appreciate that like Randy Fine, for whatever reason, is just like letting his nuts hang on this thing that
because he's done it,
everyone knows.
He's done it with every, like his whole thing is that he doesn't like Muslims. He doesn't want Muslims in the country. So every time a Muslim says or does anything that he can jump on, he does.
But like, I love that I can now go back to these posts and point to them to be like, listen, there's proof. Elected officials are just willing to say it out loud at this point. This is not a minority position, right? Like, and we need to all accept the fact that cats are better. No, I mean,
he literally stole this tweet or this statement from a Palestinian who pretends not to be a Palestinian, but the guy that was the son of one of the Hamas co-founders that's on like Piers Morgan and all these places. People love bringing him out because it's like since October 7th, he was a Shin Bet operative that was he was working for Shin Bet for the longest time after an arrest, and he was basically allowed to come to the United States, became a drug addict for a long time, and then still looks like one, I don't know, but he became like an evangelical Christian, and he pretends that there's a difference between him and Muslims. But the whole thing is he made this video at one point that he says, if I had to choose between 2 billion Muslims and a goat, I'd choose the goat. And Randy Fine just stole that statement to do that. He's literally stealing like a Palestinian guys.
Listen, I've never had the assumption or the expectation that Republican elected officials are creative with their racism. I know they're plagiarizing because at the end of the day, they're politicians.
It's just funny. It's just funny.
It is very funny.
It's funny to see a Zionist just steal like even the racism from a Palestinian.
But I like that I'm going to be able to use this as like a starting. Like I was kidding about the cat. I was kidding about the cat thing earlier that I would said about like let's replace cats with dogs. I have nothing wrong with dog people as long as you clean up the shit after your animal. Cat people don't usually have this problem because we have the whole litter box situation. You know,
they're
like
getting themselves sick.
I
say there's someone that said both and likes having both. But I think though that the big thing with the social contract, right? Like you're 100% on point. But it's like the social contract is another thing, like all these non-codified parts of our society that Trump has kind of just exploded open. And that's kind of one of the reasons that people like Trump so much is like the lack of social niceties. But those social niceties, the flip side of that is the social contract, the contract we make with one another to be able to just function in a society. But nobody's ever codified that into, if you codify that, you become fucking Singapore. And you have to come up with like things like caning somebody for disrupting the social contract too much. So I'm not advocating that, but it's like you've seen all these breakdowns of the social contract since COVID, especially where it's like now people just go on the subway and they'll play their music really, really loud on a speaker or something. And before people understood that part of the social contract is that when you're on public transportation with everybody else, right, you put something in your ears and you listen to your music. You don't play it on a giant speaker. Like there's all these different things that are like, I mean,
and if you are playing on giant speakers, at least be putting on a show.
Yeah. I'm not talking about like
busking. I understand that, but like I get the exact thing. I was actually laughing because I was back in I was on the West Coast for a little bit and I was on a bus. So we barely do that out there. But the driver stopped the bus and walked to the back where there was this guy who was sitting across from me who was watching TikToks at full blast. And he was like, dude, turn it down. And the guy was arguing kind of like that guy at the bar last night. He was arguing, it's like, but I would have headphones. It's like the rules of the bus are that you don't do amplified music. Either turn down and get off the bus.
Yeah.
And the guy turned it down. And, it was still loud and visible. And like, if you have the need to watch TikToks and the 20 minutes of time where you can literally turn your brain off, all you have to do is breathe and sit. You don't have to drive. You don't have to walk. You don't have to pay attention to your surroundings that badly. If your desire during that rare amount of like destimulative time, you're not at work, you're not at home, you're just in commute. If your desire is to so bad that you need to watch TikToks in that moment, maybe you need one of those like block brick things that like stops you from using social media on your phone, because like honestly that's just like brain rot at that point.
I think that the breakdown of the social contract, the breakdown of like the idea of the social contract has gone hand in hand with like just our mental health as a society worsening, like especially since COVID, right? Like you can just tell people have gotten crazier, and you can just tell people are kind of getting more nuts and more neurotic about stuff, and it kind of all feels like it's of a piece with itself, like the breakdown of the social contract happens also because people are just, I don't know, people are just not able to function within that social contract at all. It's like whether it's having to listen to something and like not being able to sit there and just sit there with your thoughts. Like you have to put something in your ears and then you don't have headphones and then you have to blast it at full volume. Like there's both an entitlement and there's like a neuroticism to the fact that people can no longer just function within the basic societal frameworks that like you'd assume that everyone agreed on up until a certain point, but it's antisocial behavior.
Yeah. And like, everyone desires to be treated right. And, beyond right. They want to be treated, like kings and queens. Everyone does, I don't think that people should not want to aspire to that. But if you're not also putting that out into the world, like, I think that's like, a breaking of like, I would love for my neighbors to not walk in dog shit, if not for the reason of it's going to stink up my neighborhood or, my hallway or whatever. It's something that I don't love to happen to me. And so I don't necessarily wish it on people unless they like really fuck with me. Right. You also get, which is like in so many other different cases. The social
I think also, as
Last word.
as we've kind of gotten to this generational point, and I think this is the last thing I really have to say about this, but as we've gotten to this generational point where it's like the aspirations that we have are not, we can't have them be as high anymore because of the way our economic system works. And it's like people can't expect, all right, I'm going to have a house. A lot of people don't expect they're ever going to get married and have kids. Like there's all of these things that at one point it was like, I want this like normal middle class life, and you're really aspiring to that. What we've replaced it with are minute kind of consumer experiences. Like when you're a consumer, you get to be treated in this way that you're never going to be treated, or you feel like you're never going to be treated in life. You don't get that experience of feeling like the king of your own castle or something.
And
right?
the consumer experience fucking sucks. Like, you know,
It does too. But
even if you're like business class on an airplane, it kind of sucks.
But people kind of reach out for that wherever they can. So it's like they're reaching out for this feeling of being the king of the castle in these small ways that really disrupt the social contract. And it's almost lashing out because you no longer have the ability to have just like, you know, to aspire to have like a this experience where one day you can feel like you're in your own domain, or you can feel like you have some kind of power over that. And I don't know, it's just like it's empowering in the most antisocial possible way.
I feel that. We have a bit of domestic news here. There's some updates on Zoran Mamdani, which I think we can maybe like end on a little bit. It might make a good transition right now because we're talking about New York, but frankly, I think there's just like other stuff to hit on that we can get around. And we can get to that pretty quickly. But I think the two really big things are Trump's tariffs getting struck down. But let's start with like some of the Epstein updates that are different stuff. I'm going to do this wonderful thing where I'm going to blend into the background that is actually real that I have behind there and use the bathroom. And also let me know if you want like a tea or water or anything that I can
grab my other
Are they all the same flavor, or is there a specific one you want me to get?
There's just one more.
Okay. You want a beer? Want anything else?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Sweet. I am just running through these for better or worse because I'm gonna need something for the movie later. But yeah, I think the Epstein stuff is a good thing. You can kind of, you know, just like wrap on for a little bit while I'm handling all that. But there's so many different angles of it. We'll play the videos once I'm back because I want to see these as well. But Prince Andrew,
yeah,
what's going on there?
So you know, they arrested the prince formerly known as Andrew.
To be clear, not our boy.
Not our boy, but
Bam's boy, not ours. Bam's a big fan of the Royals, but not us.
So the Andrew formerly known as Prince has gotten arrested. It's the first time since 1601 that I'm pretty sure it's 1601 that Charles I got arrested as and they beheaded him. That's the last time they beheaded a royal that high up in the game. Not for the Epstein stuff, but in the sense of not for fucking underage kids, but they arrested him for forwarding the wrong email, forwarding too much information in his emails, which is kind of funny. That it's like, but I feel like if they arrested him for, you know, child sex abuse, they'd have to arrest a lot of fucking politicians in England. So maybe they're not trying to make that a regular thing. Half the Labour Party feels like it's about to go down for child pornography or just child sex trafficking, or it's like an epidemic right there over there. But yeah, so he's been taken in. It might be the 1640s. I might have gotten the year wrong, but
I also do want to say, like, for the record, like it's not like the Labour Party has an issue like it's not like the Labour Party has more of like a
they don't
abuse issue than like any of the other parties in England, or frankly any of the other countries in the world. This is not like caping for the Labour Party here. I think the Labour Party is like, even though they have, you know, power in England based off the last election, I don't think they have the institutional or like, you know, constituent power that would seem to back that up. And so not only will like other countries just like have politicians with shame still exists in other countries.
Yeah.
And so like you'll get politicians who will like, you know, take accountability. Keir Starmer is taking accountability for appointing that one person who was really tied to the Epstein files, and
Peter Mandelson.
And
I've
there are people who are calling.
Yeah.
Sorry, just want to say that there are people who are even calling for Keir Starmer to resign because of all these different things, and that's only happening. And that's
came out because he said, oh, I knew about Peter Mandelson being all over the Epstein files.
Great. It's like that's only happening. You know, part of the reason like there's shame that exists in other countries, but also there's shame that exists on the left in other countries. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it is kind of like a unilateral disarmament when your other opponents are arguably just as guilty as you are, but not in power and not in the spotlight. Like, you know, in a sane world, this would be one of the bigger scandals of our time, and someone like Keir Starmer should go down for this. But there are, and I don't want to at all come off as though I'm saying that these crimes are not severe and this like the tendrils of power are not important, but there are so many other major like, you know, society ending things that are going on, from climate change to like geopolitics, to where I'm not saying, you know, dump Keir Starmer off the ship off of this unless he's literally in the files.
Yeah, which he's not, and but the thing is, he's not in the files because as one of the royals said, if you're not in the Epstein files, you're a loser. That was a quote that she recently said on the BBC, which I feel like Keir Starmer is one of those losers. That
wasn't it Howard Lutnick who was like, well, you know, like everyone, when the Epstein files came out, I did a search for my name, and I was like, no. I didn't do that.
No, because Howard Lutnick is in so many of the Epstein files.
It was
Scott
Besant.
Yeah, Scott Besant. Because it was Howard Lutnick was Epstein's neighbor. So there's no way that he was not in the Epstein files.
But you know, like just the idea that, oh well, you know, every American wakes up, you know, they check their stock portfolio, they put on a coffee, and then they see if they're in the Epstein files. Like, fucking no.
Yeah.
That's like,
well, no, he's talking about it like well, oh yeah, I've searched my name on Twitter to see what people are saying about me, of course, and it's like,
but even that is still not like a. I mean, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like public figures, that's going to be something that most public figures do to some extent, or they have someone do that for them. But the idea that, oh, every public figure is looking to see if they're in the Epstein list, I'm like, well, I know for a pretty good fact that like Hassan did not have to do that.
Yeah,
I'm sure he hired someone to do that in case like someone was mentioning, Jeffrey Epstein, what do we do about this Hassan guy, or some shit like that, right? But I
kind of wish Epstein lived to see the Joe Rogan of the left discourse, because I guarantee you his fucking emails would have been amazing when they're like, when people are reaching out to Jeffrey Epstein to ask who should the Joe Rogan of the left be. Which Epstein was trying to meet with Joe Rogan, the regular one too, as you know.
That was the only good thing he decided not to do.
Yeah, I know. He was I can't remember who it was. Like it's like an MIT guy that he was meeting with or something. It was the one guy that's like, he's high up, I think, at either MIT or Harvard. That Larry Krauss, that's who it was. Larry Krauss. And he was talking to Epstein, and Epstein was like, "Hey, did you talk to Joe Rogan about me? I'd really like to meet him. I'd really like to have dinner with Joe Rogan." Would you think you could just give Joe Rogan a certain amount of money? He'd definitely have dinner with you. But you know, I guess not. But yeah, there's a lot of people going down for this, but the Prince Andrew one is kind of wild, and it's kind of wild that he's going down at this point, and like, it's not about the Epstein, you know, child trafficking stuff. It's literally about emails. But his emails, you know. Guess he's never gonna be the Democratic nominee now because of those emails. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the Epstein files. I don't know. I searched my name, not in there. What the fuck, Epstein? I thought we had a friendship going back years, and I'm not even mentioned once. Just kidding. Yeah. So there's so much going on with that, and it's kind of crazy. Like, I mean, I guess it makes sense because it's Trump's Justice Department, but like, you think there'd be one thing that's like, you know, that there's a lot of smoke when it comes to Trump, but like, there's got to be fire in there somewhere. I mean, they'll still say like, it's not real, it's fake, but there's like, I think there's 3 million more papers in the file or whatever that they haven't released at this point. And yeah, Hunter Biden is looking better every day, because Hunter Biden was fucking girls of age that were hookers, and my man liked smoking crack. My man was not trying to hang out with teenage girls and Jeffrey Epstein. He was trying to hang out with himself, like 3 hookers and a bunch of crack and a gun. He usually had a gun, but I don't think Hunter Biden's crimes were not they were not the, you know, sex offender crimes. They were like guy who has too much money and doesn't know what to do with himself and is going insane crimes. And they went through Hunter's laptop, and there was really not that much shit that was. I mean, a lot of it was incriminating in the way that everything else with Hunter Biden was incriminating, and the fact that he's like, like he was smoking crack and had a lot of prostitutes, but there was a lot of smoke with no fire when it came to like the Ukraine stuff. I feel like with Hunter Biden,
they were all above age.
Yeah,
to our knowledge.
Well, I don't think Hunter Biden was not a pedophile. He was just a crackhead.
These are our standards in American politics now.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's not my business if Hunter Biden wants to do crack. It's not like I have to vote for him,
Let's see.
To be clear, I don't think he should. Like, I don't think anyone should be doing crack, but I just don't feel like it's my business.
Well, yeah, let's look a little judgmental over here. A poll says almost 7 in 10 people believe the Epstein files show that powerful people are rarely held accountable. So
I want to talk to the 3 in 10 that think that powerful people are held accountable for the Epstein files. Like, are those just the people that work for the Trump administration, or like, are those just the people that are 3 in 10 people are in the Epstein files, so they think people have been held accountable because they're also in there?
Yeah, they're like, we got to pad these odds real quick.
It's been like, there's this crazy number where it's, I mean, 3 in 10 is basically like 30%, right? And there's been 30% of people that are like the diehard Trumpers, or whatever you want to call them, diehard maggots, as people on Twitter say. And it's like, those people, 3 in 10 people believe all kinds of fucking crazy shit.
Let me play this Caroline Levitt clip right here, talking to the press about the Epstein files. Press secretary for Trump.
She's like younger.
And that remains true. And that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning. And I'm sure many of you, when you read that alleged FBI report, probably thought to yourself, wow, this really cracks our narrative that we've been trying to push about this president for many years. So we're moving on from that. Ray.
Yeah, they've been saying this whole
stop it at that point.
They've been saying this whole the files clearly exonerate Trump, so like we're all good. Don't worry about it.
It's pretty funny to be like the people releasing the files, and you choose what files to release. You're like, oh, we're going through them and we'll release them one by one, and we're gonna redact as many people as we can that are like, they're not just redacting victims, they're redacting perpetrators. And it's like, yeah. By the way, 3 in 10 is about this is what I said. 3 in 10 people believe whatever pretty much the Trump administration says.
Yeah,
so.
the floor is of somewhere between 25 and 35% on any given thing. 25 to 35% floor on that.
Because I remember there was like a crazy one where it's like now 7 in 10 Americans think that after the Alex Petty thing, Alex Petty murder, like Trump's like the policies that Trump is undertaking in terms of immigration have gone too far, and it's like 7 in 10 people were believing that, and I'm just like, damn, that 3%. Or that 3 out of 10. I mean, the 30% of people are like, Trump probably could shoot them in Fifth Avenue, and they'd just be like, well.
We've got. We did want to mention this. This just happened yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So the Supreme Court has been looking at whether, the legality over Trump's tariffs that he did, these Liberation Day tariffs that he did around April of last year.
Liberation Day.
Survey says can't do that. Or at least the Supreme Court has largely ruled that while the decision does not affect all of Trump's tariffs, it invalidates those implemented using the emergency law. So once again, it's one of those like technicality sort of situations where, okay, well, because you tried to claim this was an emergency, these tariffs don't work. And so that should theoretically mean that the tariff should have to go through Congress in order for that to work, but it's not going to. Trump, like, I don't know what the statistics are, but there's been hundreds of court orders that Trump has been issued, possibly even thousands at this point, and hundreds at least that Trump has just like flat out ignored.
Yeah.
Or like just done his own thing on through the administration, not necessarily directly him, but his administration, therefore him, if the buck stops with him. So like those things are absolutely out there. We want to, see exactly how he's going to respond to this. I've seen clips of Trump saying he's very defiant that we're going to still do these tariffs anyways, by which way, whatever, that we have to have the lawyers figure it out. But he seems pretty steadfast on these. The last thing that I had seen, and these things very move around, so the moment I say it and publish this is probably going to be outdated, but he was talking about a 10% blanket tariff on everyone in the world. And still, the whole point is that like you're supposed to do tariffs through Congress.
It reminds me of that old Robert Moses quote where he says he's talking about building, obviously, but it's the same kind of thing where he's like
Robert Moses, the like city planner for the New York City
planner,
around the World War
but
II.
also the
Post-World War II.
subject of the book, The Power Broker, which is less about what he was building and more about like the raw power he was exercising as a study of how power works. He said basically, once the stakes are in the ground, what court is going to stop me? And I feel like it's the same thing with Trump and a lot of the immigration stuff, especially where it's like once the planes are flying with the people in it, deporting them to another place, it's not like it's not like they're going to turn around the planes. You know what I mean? They're like, well, we can't hear you. The plane already took off. And I feel like that's how Trump's treated policy writ large in as many situations as he can.
Right. So we're going to see how those tariffs go. Another thing going on are, February has been a time to where, Tom Homan came in after the Alex Preddy and the Renee Nicole Good shootings in Minneapolis. So that kind of
I really, every time I see his name,
I hate that you're laughing after this.
No, I think every time I see his name, I think Tom Human, and I'm like, I'm Tom Human. I'm a human, bro. I'm not an alien. I'm
Tom Human. I'm a real person.
He reminds me of one of those in Men in Black when he has like the like that, and it's really like an alien in a human suit. That's what Tom Homan reminds me of.
I'm gonna reset that just so it's more serious, but I see the vision there. So like speaking in February after Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis and in the area were killed at the hands of DHS agents from many different agencies who are kind of coming to that like Metro Surge operation, so-called. ICE has been said under the new sort of oversight of Tom Homan to be essentially winding down that operation. People in Minneapolis are saying that we're still going through the same stuff, we're still doing the same procedures of people bringing groceries for people who are too afraid to go outside, stops happening on the streets, the city feeling like it's under siege. People have been pushing back. You've seen tenant strikes, you've seen labor strikes in Minneapolis and beyond, but you've already seen just like terrible things throughout the month. I mentioned that Trump, I didn't mention necessarily this, I mentioned the incineration part about this very quickly and in the side, but the Trump administration is buying a bunch of warehouses in random cities across the country that are like largely abandoned and trying to retrofit them to be ICE detainment facilities. And some of these facilities are also being fitted for incineration of biomatter and biotoxins and things like that, which is literally people. Like it's literally dead bodies. It's like, how do we like burn dead bodies? And this is not, we're trying to do this lawful thing of getting people out of the country who have overstayed their visas. And if someone happens to die in custody while we're like doing this, we're sorry, we didn't want them to die. We just wanted them to get out of our country. So we're going to, send the body back, find the next of kin, do any of that. No, it's burn the evidence. Let's pretend like this is not happening. Like that is what the administration is clearly doing through their actions here. Actions always speak louder than words, but the words and the actions are kind of like overlapping here.
I mean, I just think about like the amount of Republican staffers and operatives right now that are like openly kind of fans of the Nazis, right? Like you have a good percentage of them, especially the younger ones that are openly fans of the Nazis. And it's like, that ends up in incinerators, right? Like it's, they're like, oh, well, it's not enough just to build these kind of like warehouses to warehouse people, in the same way that.
But the incinerators are gas free, so that's progressive.
that's the Gavin Newsom administration. He comes in and he's like, I'm gonna make the incinerators more. I'm gonna make the incinerators more.
We're gonna be used clean natural gas.
Liberal Hitler, he's here.
Liberal Hitler. You might have hit something calling Gavin Newsom liberal Hitler.
Yeah. Somebody has to get Brace Belden online because he's been looking for liberal Hitler, and I feel like it's Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom could be liberal.
I've been calling him Governor American Psycho, but liberal Hitler definitely, like that scene in The Incredibles when like Mr. Incredible is looking at all the Omnidroid drafts or like the original models, and it's like A versus B, which one wins? Like an A/B test. I think liberal Hitler just beat out Governor American Psycho. Eliminated.
He's
Eliminated.
like, I don't know. He steps out there and he's like, he kind of has the RFK Jr. voice. The more he talks,
I don't know. He's always had the gravelly voice, but like he has more of. I don't want to necessarily get into to RFK Jr.'s thing, but Gavin Newsom has that like gravelly surfer bro voice. Like he sounds like he's from Huntington Beach.
Yeah,
that's different from RFK's like but like what 56K modem speaking.
When Gavin Newsom talks on his podcast for like a few hours and then tries to give a speech, he takes on the affect of like the RFK voice. Like it sounds like he's busted out his vocal cord or something. I don't know. I heard it the other day and I was like, God damn, it's the same as the RFK Jr. voice. Liberal Hitler.
Anywho's, let's see. Was it Truth Out was reporting that ICE agents were trained on law and de-escalation, but have been ignoring those things. That's been pretty clear with that.
Well, there was a thing that I was looking at from I believe it was 2014, and I wish I had this in front of me, but there was from the Obama administration, there was an ICE agent. There was a report that came out that said CPB and ICE agents were actually stepping in front of vehicles, so the vehicle would hit them and they could shoot into the vehicles.
I saw that.
All of these stories about how that had been happening in the Obama administration, and then obviously that report was buried, but it came back in a big way pretty recently, like right after the Renee Good thing. So it's like, oh wow, so that is a tactic that ICE agents and CPB agents really frequently use. Is just step in front of the vehicle, and then it's like they hit me. Bah, 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 bah. Like
it's a get out of jail free card, and like I mean that, noting the irony and kind of like the gaucheness of that, turn of phrase, but like it's really what they're using it for. The other thing I was going to note here before we jump to some of the other stuff, a couple things. There are these agreements, like I think NBC News did an analysis, I want to say, where there were 1,100, almost 1,200 agencies with ICE officers signed up to help ICE, up from 135 during the Biden administration. So that's more than 1,000 more.
Yeah.
And there are 150 at the end of Trump's first term. So they'd actually closed some of these during Biden, but like going from, again, liberal Hitler, we're no longer going to have 150 police agencies dealing with ICE. It's only going to be 135. See, look, #progress. And then, the actual comeback, conservative real Hitler comes back. Mm-hmm. It's like 1,168 agencies, according to this NBC.
Well, and
report.
This is not meant as any kind of defense of law enforcement of any variety, but the Trump administration has been pretty strict in a way others haven't about trying to force law enforcement agencies to work with ICE. Like that's his preferred scenario. That's why he's
pushing them too. There's the questions exist, legally and practically whether he can force them, but there's a lot of
trying to pressure them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Pressure them for sure. And there's also a lot of agencies that are like, you had us at you hadn't said anything yet. They were already ready to go. Yeah.
And I'm not, and that's not like me, like I'm not.
I get it.
Thing.
Yeah.
But it really, that's the whole point of doing anything he can to pull funding away from sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, right? It's that he wants to use that as a way to wedge ICE into just regular law enforcement.
Yeah. And then this is somewhat related here, but unfortunately, this SAVE Act, which people should think of as 21st century poll taxes, basically, Trump has this election bill, the Save America Act. Because I think the SAVE Act was like something else that was more like economic and may have been under a different administration. But this SAVE Act is supposed to be like, okay, you need voter ID laws, and those are different like sort of systems. You need to show either a real ID or a passport or something to be able to vote. And there are all these different people saying, whoa, what about this case over here? Well, we found someone illegally voting. And I'm like, correct. There's a case of where someone was found of illegally voting. That's illegal. And so therefore they were punished with fines and or jail time. So like, we can already just like get out of it there. What about all these states where you're allowed to drive as an undocumented immigrant and they give you that? What if you take that and you go to vote? Much like how states issue different licenses to people who can drive versus people who just have state IDs. versus people who are below the age of 21 versus people who are above the age of 21 for consumption of alcohol and tobacco, things like that. States already issue different licenses. Just because you have a license doesn't mean you get to do all the things that are legal in the state with that license, including voting. And so, like, I know this coming from California. We are one of the states, and we're one of the biggest states in the union, of course, one of the most economically viable, just like, shouting that out. But California is a state where we have had undocumented immigrants being able to get state IDs and driver's licenses for a while, because we don't want people who are avoiding the, system to being tested to be able to be, safe drivers, as well as the DMV does, which is already questionable. But we don't want even more of that on the road, right? Like, we want to be able to have that. But you can tell on the ID when someone has an ID that allows them, it's just like a straightforward license versus someone who has it on one of these special conditions. So that is all to say that this whole claim that, blue states allow illegal voting, when illegal voting happens, it's generally caught or retroactively, fixed. In any case where it would actually affect the vote count, like really close to when it's called, it's not happening at the scale that can tip it over, unless of course it's Donald Trump trying to call in 11,000 votes and districts that he lost in Atlanta or in Georgia rather. But in the like this doesn't happen. The states where this is happening have protections against that, and it's all a pretense to attack blue states who have already been unlikely to vote for Donald Trump, but are even less likely to continue to support Trump under these and many more conditions. So like it's an obvious ploy. Of course, everyone knows it here, but we have to express it like that. Like we have to actually, unfortunately, go through some of these examples because it's very rational. Like all these dumb, one moment, I promise. All these dumb conservative things always end with this point of, oh, it maybe starts with a nugget of truth or a nugget of logic. Like, yeah, we shouldn't want people who are ineligible to vote. True. Does that happen? And people will cherry pick cases, and you can respond and say, congratulations, those are the cases that have been found already without all this extra stuff happening. We have no like sort of sense, because states are pretty good at doing this, that there is widespread voter fraud truly on any side of the political spectrum. Because I think they caught someone who was doing voter fraud. Like they caught someone who tried to register their dog to vote.
Yeah, all right. So
and then
I was gonna bring up this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So a Republican in California decided to test the voter fraud laws. How easily they catch voter fraud by registering her dog to vote in an election a few years ago. She got caught after voting in an election. Got caught doing that and got sent to jail. And that's the case that they try to use, where they're like, see, a woman, but it's a Republican woman who was trying to make the point that
she was trying to vote Republican too.
Yeah, but she was trying to show how easy it is in Gavin Newsom's California, because it was pretty recent. But in Gavin Newsom's California, I'm pretty sure, to vote illegally, and they caught her pretty fast, and like she was in prison, and she's still in prison. And it's like that's the case they're using, which obviously she's not going to come out and be like, and
they're like, see, there's voter fraud in California. And my response is, see, they jail people who do voter fraud in California.
Yeah, but they leave that part out, obviously.
And the people, yeah, exactly. The people who are doing voter fraud, again, like, I think, again, that's an anecdotal case here. So I'm going to use my own logic, right? Like, just to be honest, that is one case where a Republican has believed all of this hoopla. And so they're trying to prove a point. They're trying to prove that voter fraud is possible. And they're dumbasses, which are usually the people who try to steal votes are dumbasses, or try to vote illegally are dumbasses. See also the president. But like they get caught. Or, it's the case where you file a provisional ballot in California, especially, it gets counted later because it goes through like a lot of different verification. And those that don't pass the verification steps are rejected and possibly sent, if there's believed to be, okay, this is not just a mistake, this is criminal wrongdoing, then they're prosecuted.
It's also funny that they don't go after like electronic voting machines, which would seem like they're the easiest ones to hack. If you actually vote, and then they're counting the votes individually.
Well, they tried, but thankfully, like, Dan in defense of privatization, thankfully those companies had an incentive to sue.
Yeah.
Fox News and all the outlets that were claiming
that was the Dominion suit, right?
Yeah. And a couple.
That's the one that got Tucker kicked out of it.
Because they were like, hey, yo, listen, we're not going to say that his executives were on the side of Republicans or not, because like probably, but you're talking about the validity and the trustworthiness of our voting machines, which we also use in blue states. Like, even the Republicans were like, Democrats vote too, right?
There was that
gay people buy shoes, and Democrats also vote.
There's now like a big kind of I guess I don't even know if I want to call it conspiracy theory around this, but there was that moment where Trump was like talking about Elon Musk, and he's like, he knows more about voting machines than anyone. Right after he won Pennsylvania, and he like thanked him on stage and was like, he's a guy who knows more about voting machines than anyone I've ever met. And it's like,
well,
yeah.
If there's anything, I at least don't believe in like Elon Musk or any like entity around him, their abilities to like hack and things.
I'm just saying like that kind of
it's us.
It got a lot. It got a lot of side eyes from liberals. Now there's like a liberal community of people that believe that Trump stole the 2024 election.
I remember seeing some of that stuff.
Although
on the left too.
I do think that there's a little bit of I've always felt like the 2004 election, right? Because Bush stole the first one.
We're getting way off topic right now. I'm sorry, I gotta stop you there. I don't even want to go down that tangent. Like once we're talking about John Kerry, I'm like, we gotta get back to the rundown. I want to go to the Zoran stuff right here because I have a lot of takes on this, and as like both of us being kind of New Yorkers, there's a lot to talk about here.
As a New Yorker, I'm black.
As a New Yorker, I am a New Yorker. No, but there's actually I'll cover the Jasmine Crockett Tallarico stuff because we have some Colbert things in here, but I want to read more into Jasmine Crockett because I've been making a larger point about the broader left and like Crockett Tallarico, who's a bro up in Maine. Plattner, yeah, like that's I'll get to that later, but thank you, Sachi. Let's go into the Zoran stuff. And so I think one interesting thing here, well, actually, you especially paid much more attention and have paid much more attention in the month of February. So just as we have on this screen over here, talking to Forrest right now in the recording, we can talk about the homeless sweeps, the Mamdani like justification for them. Like we can jump in however you want to.
Yeah, I mean, so they're bringing back homeless sweeps, sweeping the encampments. The big, I think.
And what do those entail, by the way?
So it entails. I mean, so I'm not exactly sure when it comes to Mamdani's version of this because I think there are
generally homelessness sweeps.
Homelessness sweeps entail the NYPD going to the encampments, pretty much arresting the people that are in the encampments. A lot of times, just breaking down the encampments. There's been a lot of reports. A big part of this, right, about why this is a wrong. A wrong thing to do is that they a lot of times have either destroyed or stolen stuff that homeless people kind of rely on to survive within their
they're like they don't just like arrest you for illegally camping. They take all of your stuff and they sometimes they'll say, oh, if you want to get it back, go here. But if that isn't already like a hop, skip, and a jump to like actually go through to do all those hoops, oftentimes they will just destroy it.
Yeah.
And like we live in a really struggle society. So if you have a job but maybe you don't have a car, because like, there's a lot of people who are unhoused on the West Coast, especially who like have cars at least, and so they at least have cars treated with almost as much respect as a house in this country. So those are a little bit easier to get, and like there's a little bit more accountability for missing those. But in places like New York City where a lot of people don't have cars, but maybe you have a nice tent or a nice bike or something that you put some time into. Some of these are acquired in different ways, but these are people who are struggling.
I'm trying to find a specific article that came out from the Gothamist a while back that broke down the exact numbers. If I remember correctly, the numbers were pretty insane. It was like out of 4,000, I want to say, homeless sweeps that had happened in New York City in 2025. I want to say like throughout most of the year, only 3 people had made it into long-term housing based off of these sweeps. So it was like so this was the backdrop to, or one of the backdrops to Mamdani's original thing where he said he was going to stop homeless sweeps and then review the policy and then decide what he wanted to do from there. So this is he's come out and it's also in the backdrop of this blizzard where I think it was something like 18 people died and a lot of them have hypothermia, but not in encampments. And the right-wing media basically turned that into Mamdani's policies. And I'm not saying that, that there was nothing within the range of policies that could have been done different or something. But it was not people dying in homeless encampments. A lot of people were they were homeless people that either walked to like a hospital and died. Like a couple of died outside of the hospital. There were some people that were making money shoveling and had heart attacks. Like it was not as simple as people in encampments freezing to death. But there's been a lot of movement in WABC 77, like the big right-wing radio space, especially, that just hired Cuomo to do his weekly Cuomo show. That's his job now. He's a radio host.
Chris?
No, Andrew.
I would have done a spit take, but that's messy to do.
I'm happy because I'm right here. So
yeah, I mean, like no, like we're low budget, and so we don't have costume changes, and also like I think that would be the thing where like Forrest rightfully punches me in the face. Yeah, but like let's imagine a spit take right now. Like really,
well,
really.
Right, so there's this guy.
We're never beating the revolving door accusation.
But there's the guy that owns Gristedes, John Casamedis or whatever. He's the big billionaire. He owns that radio station, and
Big Mantides from Gristedes.
Yeah,
Big McThankies from McSpankies.
He was just in Marty Supreme. He played the guy that Marty Supreme was trying to sell orange ping pong balls to. That's an idea. But yeah, so that guy basically had Cuomo on his radio station. Sliwa was working also for his radio station. Sliwa publicly quit his radio station because this guy that looks like a lobster pretty much that works that's like an incredibly fucking like evil Zion. Like evil's not even the word I'd begin to describe it. He's vile, racist, and disgusting. This guy had gotten into a fight like trying to get Sliwa to drop out live on the radio at his job pretty much. And so Andrew Cuomo now works at that radio station pretty much. So they've been kind of the main force that have laid these 18 deaths, and I'm sure there'll be more deaths that they'll lay at Zoran's feet after this next after this next snowstorm that's about to happen. This morning at 6 a.m. Which I got to get back to Long Island before then, I guess. But I don't want to go back to Long Island.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said this before, like, welcome to hell, Zoran Mamdani. This is going to be your life for as long as you are mayor or like any position that you are allowed to be in. It's going to continue being like this. Your best intentions are like, you can be doing everything right as New York City mayor, and you are fundamentally the mayor of an ungovernable, like, a couple bits of islands and land where you can do everything right and someone could still die on your watch for something that you could have feasibly done. And, that's just the nature of it, no matter how good or how bad you do your job. Well, and I don't mean to be like this as like as a cop out, because I'm looking for Zoran a trip, honestly, just to keep accountable. But like, I'm also going to be honest and say, like, I think if you had a super, like, my favorite best candidate ever that's in my imagination, that's it's just it's 8 million people plus.
There's always going to be a level of dishonesty when you try to do something to reform either the NYPD or just really any kind of homelessness policy or anything that really benefits poor people, right? Like there's the entire media ecosystem, even in New York City, that's revolved around trying to make sure that doesn't happen at the as they see it, at least, expense of the more wealthy residents of the city, because they see it. And Zoran doesn't see it this way, I don't think, and Bernie Sanders never saw it this way, and AOC has never been able to see it this way. It is, in fact, to the wealthy, it's a zero-sum game. You're not able, I don't think there's a point where you can convince wealthy people this is in their best interest. And you've seen all of them try to do it, which I guess is the nature of politics. But it's like, you see this all the time where it's like, no, they see this as a zero-sum game. They see this as class war. This is very much class war, and you're on the other side of it. If you're a progressive politician, even if you're a social democratic politician or just a progressive politician, and they see this thing as anything that helps poor people hurts us. Anything that even if it helps them, even if they're able to write it off as a tax write-off, right? Like it's just the principle of knowing that government can help poor people. Is it to them an anathema. But yeah, so that's all of the that's a lot of the background to Mamdani bringing back homeless encampment sweeps. I don't know exactly. He wants to take it away from the essential part of the NYPD that does it, and he wants to put it into the community safety department that he's going to create, which hasn't been created yet. He also wants to make sure that social workers are going to the scenes of these encampments, I guess, and trying to trying to talk to people a bunch of times before they actually go in and do a sweep.
And I do want to say that I think that's overall the better approach. I think, you know, you always want to make sure that the people who are working these very difficult social jobs, who are oftentimes very motivated to do so, are safe. And so that's always a consideration. But
Yeah.
It doesn't make anyone more safe when you start a situation with a gun, right? Like when you start from that point of like lethality, that does not really ease anyone's nerves. It just puts someone in like it puts someone who's already living their days in a survival situation and even more of like a fight or flight situation.
Yeah.
And when you combine a lot of the, you know, combination, you know, issues that can come from getting to the point in life we're also experiencing being unhoused, like there's a lot of mental instability that can happen through there just through like, you know, any different number of factors, that doesn't really make anything safer. And so I shout out what Los Angeles Metro and a lot of other agencies have done across the country, which is they either replace or supplement the police force that is like on there and armed for, you know, the cases where you do have people with weapons who are very ornery on the trains, but you've replaced a lot of those with just like mental health care workers who like have, you know, medicines to treat people who are overdosing, and they keep with them resources to get people off of sleeping on trains and into shelter if they want it, or into programs that can get them out of the cycle of homelessness. And, you know, it has helped, at least in the bare minimum, of keeping some of these areas more safe. I think there's a lot more work to be done as far as making sure the outcomes for people who are experiencing homelessness end up in a good place. So, like, you know, I think there's that. But like overall, that's what, because like I was shit talking Zoran a lot lately. I want to say that like overall, that's like a step in the right direction that I think is you know, something I support.
The thing about the clearing of homeless encampments with using NYPD at all, right? It feels like the left hand, let's say, I'm not saying in terms of like political idea, but the left hand is reaching out, trying to bring some of these people, because remember, the fact is that it's the vast majority of New York's homeless population are sheltered. They're in shelters. It's an incredibly high population. So the people that are on the streets that are in these encampments are like, it's like under 10%, and it's the most recalcitrant people to go into these shelters, right? Like it's people that have had people reach out to try to help them and just don't want help. And a lot of that time it's because they've either been assaulted physically, sexually, or had something bad happen to them in a shelter. So you're bringing people in that are trying to convince this very small, incredibly recalcitrant population, hey, we're on your side, we're here to help, we really want to help you, and you're building these relationships with them, and then the NYPD comes in and clears the encampment. And it's like, it feels like the left hand's doing one thing and the right hand's doing another, and what the right hand is doing is counterproductive to what you're trying to get the left hand to do. That was my big criticism of kind of this policy, because it just feels like you're trying to convince people to come in to try to convince people that government is a force for good in their lives, or that government is a force that can help in their lives. You're trying to do the opposite of Ronald Reagan. You're trying to say the least scariest 9 words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And then you're coming in with a police force that kind of hopefully is doing more de-escalation tactics than they were under, let's say, Eric Adams, who was just like, clear the encampments. Now that he's on Turkish Airlines again and flying in the sky, hopefully you're doing more de-escalation and you're not just kind of breaking people's property, but like still, it feels like the right hand and the left hand are doing counterproductive forces to each other.
Very well said, Forrest. To that point, I want to go to the tax hike plan. And so Mamdani basically did a city of New York. You have two options. You know, like Mr. President, you have two options. Option one is to, work with the state of New York, which has the ability through Kathy Hochul, who's likely to maintain the governorship. Either,
especially now that Zoran influenced her.
Yeah, especially after that one person who was running against her is out. But like, either
my old congressman
raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers to balance the city budget. That, by the way, fiscal hawk Eric Adams left him with a bad budget.
Yeah,
and so this is
and
like,
it feels like.
Let me just set the analogy really fast, and then I want you to jump in. It's either we raise taxes on the wealthiest, or we raise taxes across the board through property taxes and things that can be controlled by the mayoralty, that the mayor can control in the New York City and the 5 boroughs. And that ends up being property taxes that affect the working class, the middle class, property owners and landlords. And while you think, haha, yeah, fuck the landlords, those prices are definitely going to come down to tenants as well. And so it was very interesting seeing the coverage of this, because some outlets were saying, Mamdani is promising to tax everybody, and it's not just the rich, and taxes are coming high for you. And other people were saying, no, Zoran, in maybe it could be seen overall as a political miscalculation on just the optics of this look good. But what he was doing, if you look at the full context, is presenting two options. One where I get cooperation for Kathy Hochul, i.e. balls in the governor's court now, just based on the way the system works, or I'm left only to the devices of my own powers, the city of New York, which are very limiting and have this very, shovel instead of scaffold or whatever, scalpel approach to handling the budget crisis, which will affect the poorest New Yorkers as well as the richest.
Yeah, and then like by the numbers or whatever, right? There's I think it's $12 billion, and some of it's already been closed by Hochul, and I do wonder, I've been thinking about this a lot, like how much of behind the scenes stuff between Hochul and Zoran we're not seeing, because it really does feel like a lot of the stuff is in conversation with itself. But yeah, so I think there's something like a $8 billion budget deficit left behind now by Eric Adams. It was originally, I believe, $12 billion, and the choice he was giving was either you raise taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers through state taxes 2%, or he's going to raise property taxes, or he's going to have to raise property taxes to close the budget deficit by 9.1%. So a more significant property tax increase that affects both middle class, working class, and just all classes of New Yorkers that are at least the ones that are able to that own their homes. But it also affects tenants, because once you raise property taxes, landlords are going to raise taxes too, or raise rent too.
Yeah, and so
but the 2%, like on the wealthy, it's the 2% tax. It's like a small, like a infinitely small tax on the wealthiest people in the city. It's not like, I don't know. It's a 2% wealth tax. It's like the Elizabeth Warren plan,
right? And then this other Gothamist article here, which another promise that Mamdani had that is going into effect, which is really good. NYPD budget holds near $6.4 billion as Mamdani's safety plans go unfunded. So I think there are some things that Mamdani didn't get ultimately in this bill. But the main highlight of this bill is that supposedly the budget dipped slightly. And the announcement that Adams had to expand NYPD by 5,000 officers is not going to be funded and not going to happen. So the fact that you're seeing
one of those things that was like a vindictive Adams thing on the way out the door.
Yeah. I'm trying to see here. Let's see.
I want to say I'm always impressed with Gothamists for holding the line on like kind of a more defund style politics, when so many outlets are like, no, we need more police, and Gothamist has always been like very, very good at being like, no, I think that the way that we've been doing things is very bad. Like,
yeah, New York City has very good adversarial media. And I think it leads, and I hate to say this, but I do think it leads a lot of other areas in the country that do have adversarial media, but just not as many people working at it. Like LA Taco is good. There's some great stuff in the Pacific Northwest. There's some great Tennessee Holler is really good. But I
SF
think
Gate in like San Francisco.
Absolutely, yeah. SF, I want to say there's a new one in San Francisco. That's San Francisco Standard. Yes, they're also very good. They just started out very new, but so. It's forming there, but like I think Gothamist
it closed down. I want to say, and it's actually a really fucking sad thing. But Texas Observer used to be incredible.
They closed down. That sucks.
I think I want to say they did. I might be totally wrong about that, but I remember Griscom talking about that. But Texas Observer, like they've even done like JFK stuff that I've found whatever. And there's on the right wing side of it. like Miami Herald, not good in any capacity when it comes to like any kind of foreign policy questions, but they were the only ones that were willing to break the Epstein stuff.
Well, there was that one reporter who did stuff like that. So like I tend to always like, unless it's a pattern of an entire outlet, I'll always shout out the reporters who are like, hey, yo, this reporter just happens to want healthcare and like a legal team to defend the stuff they work on.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not necessarily the Miami Herald based on how the conservative.
Julie K. Brown. Yeah.
Yes, Julie K. Brown.
That broke the story.
Yes. Thank you, bad lefty. But yeah, I think I was seeing Mamdani's signature proposal to dispatch mental health teams to some 911 calls instead of police is notably absent from the preliminary plan. Administration officials said funding for the new department would appear in the executive budget, which is expected in late April. Whether that money materializes could be a clearer test of whether the mayor's campaign promises on public safety take shape. So yeah, I think that's really good. You know, let's trust but verify. Gonna check back in April, but let's just know that this is a signature part of the plan. This is not what's in NYPD right now. And maybe it's a good thing that this is, like I was saying earlier, with what like LA Metro is doing with their mental health services. Maybe it's much better to keep this outside of the police department.
Yeah. There was, especially as a trial run, which it really sucks that they laid all the stuff at Zoran's feet when it came to the deaths during the last blizzard, because he actually did have 311, especially as like the he was dispatching like social workers and government workers pretty much to talk to people that were inside of encampments and tell them about how bad the storm is and try to get them into shelters. That was like it felt like a preliminary version to see if there's a workable situation to send people into some of these situations.
I have a bunch of short things after this, so it'll be fast, but I think the last one is this is a controversy. So this is about the whole Gavin Newsom 2028 thing, which we talked about on PowerPoint way too long, just having a lot of California guests on there. And I've said things about Gavin Newsom that liberal Hitler that I have I've said things in support of Gavin Newsom. I've met Gavin Newsom a couple of different times in person.
Is he charismatic in person? I feel like he is.
He is very politician-like.
He's one of those people that I do feel like there has to be like, there's definitely a divide between like, if you were to go for beers with Gavin Newsom, it would probably be like a different Gavin Newsom that emerged than like
it would be like going out with beers with your boss's boss. Yeah. Like just the dynamic, like the air is in the room is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that like, this is not, I mean, like, I'm not going to complicate it, right? But I'll say that for most of, I'm not even going to complicate it like that. I'm trying to like word this right, but I'm saying there's a way where you can just like have a beer with someone, or like, it's not, I don't want to necessarily promote alcoholism, third canon, but like,
yeah, I was just trying to think of a scenario where, a little bit more like
I'm trying to think of a person to where like, regardless of their social status, I feel like they're not performing when they're, supposed to be at a more comfortable setting. Like, it's a one-on-one moment. Like, I'll put it like this. I have a perfect example, right? When I met Robert Garcia a month into the Trump administration, almost this time last year, and he happened to be getting ready for a couple of public statements and a town hall in his district. And I happened to be in that district at the time. He was with his staffer and I was on a video call, and I just happened to notice like Robert Garcia behind me. And I was like, is that Robert Garcia? That's interesting. And so I go up to him and I say like, hello, I'm one of your constituents, etc. This was the time where Trump's Department of Justice had threatened him with, potential government investigation because they had tried to spin the story that Robert Garcia had threatened Elon Musk on Fox News against his life, right? And so I say all that to say that interaction at a coffee shop with Robert Garcia felt genuine. I was asking like legit, how do you feel that this, very weird government 1 month into the Trump administration, barely even that, maybe 3 weeks, is already threatening you, like the ramifications that can have for you personally. And, you know, like to some extent you keep it professional, you're doing your job. But he was saying like, oh no, yeah, it's very weird, but you know, this is Long Beach, we're tougher than that. Like we don't take that shit lying down. And his statement that he had released just before I had met him really showed that. But I say all of that to say that's the context for when I was talking to someone who was like having a real human moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to be their constituent and recognize them, because no one else in this coffee shop / like bar thing really recognized that the congressman of this district was sitting right there with no security and just like his staffer. And like, I mean to say that as in to contrast that with Gavin Newsom, where yes, I was with him at like, I wasn't with him at campaign events. I was with him at private Democratic Party events. There was one time I was at a lecture on the Berkeley campus where he was speaking, and people are allowed to walk onto the campus, and sometimes they do for certain speakers. But that felt very much for Gavin Newsom, both that public setting and the private within the Democratic Party setting. They felt for him very much like performance pieces. It felt like he was putting on a show.
Yeah.
And then once his, you know, once he does a little scratch on his neck, whatever is the cue for his handlers to get him out of there, he relaxes and takes a deep breath and becomes a somewhat different person behind the scenes. Yeah. Like, you know, like that's what I get from Gavin Newsom that I don't get from someone like Robert Garcia.
That's what I guess what I was trying to say with like imagining like somebody having a beer with Gavin Newsom. I feel like there'd be like a level of like charisma to that. But I don't know how much it with him. I don't know how much it shows in his like persona that he puts on.
But yeah, like we're not at this point, and nor should we be really doing the have a beer test with our candidates as a thing. It should really be like, are you in the Epstein files as a test? And that's I
think we should get like everyone that runs for president. We should get them really fucked up and see how they behave. Be like, yo, let's get this guy mad drunk and see how he behaves. And it's like, if he's creepy, out of there.
Okay, well, like Mitt Romney's gonna win.
I don't think he's ever been fucked up.
Exactly.
but you gotta get him. No, he might be really annoying fucked up because he's never done it.
I think he's just gonna throw up a lot.
Hey there, how's it?
Would you like a hot dog? What? But anyways,
he throws up on his dog that side of the top of his car.
I say all that to say Gavin Newsom evokes a lot of negative opinions. A lot of those are rightfully so. And not only is it his like political beliefs, but he doesn't pass the smell test. And I think I've also, well, you know, I'll get to this.
That's so real. Jank got all the beers anyway.
Reference frame in the live chat. That's funny. But I basically, there have been some signs from the Pelosi campaign. There was like this big counter reaction against Hassan Piker for saying that he wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom. And I think we're both of the basic opinion here that like, as a progressive and a pre-primary moment, even if the reality is that you're going to support whoever has the most viable chance of beating Trump in 2028 or not, because I know a lot of people are not going to do that. But you know,
wait, Vance, or do you think Trump's gonna?
This is not the point I'm saying.
I know.
What I'm saying is that even if you are the kind of person who, basically, what I'm saying is if you're going to be a vote blue no matter who person, especially in this situation, which like makes a lot of sense with how bad Trump is, then it's only responsible to not necessarily lead with that in your public facing analysis when we're not even having the primaries, when we have the option to not be no matter who kind of situation, but actually I'm enthusiastic for this person. It's the difference between getting a Curtis Sliwa against Eric Adams, and those are your only two options, versus getting Zohran Mamdani versus Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo. Those are your only three.
I think a big problem is that, I mean, I think maybe AOC will run, and that might be where a lot of progressive energy goes. I think maybe Ro Khanna will run, possibly, although I don't. I think
definitely Ro Khanna is going to run. I think Gavin Newsom's going to run. I think JB Pritzker is going to run. I think the issue is who's going to get the progressive sort of like bona fides. And if AOC doesn't, then Ro Khanna is, and I don't necessarily like that outcome either.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, I think that if there was a more enthusiastic option, we wouldn't really be having these conversations at this point where it's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to vote for this person. I think it's the fact that there really hasn't been a situation where the Bernie Sanders kind of wing has gotten a representative that stands above all, right? Like in 2019 and 2018, it was clearly going to be Sanders, and there was that feeling of like, well, we're putting the momentum behind that person. I think it's starting to happen with AOC, and that conversation is starting to happen around her, but like, there's parts of what she's already done towards us that have been unimpressive.
I think for AOC, it's going to take a lot more for sure. And I also think I think there's within the Democratic primary, there's no room for error when it comes to creating one clear progressive lane.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of what happened to Bernie is that his message got diluted by other candidates, which is something that's hard to control. But if your message is really powerful by saying Medicare for all, and you get Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris saying, and Tom Steyer saying every Medicare for all who can afford it.
Yeah.
And they're like diluting what that really means, then that can be a particular issue, but also, so that's an issue for Bernie, but also Elizabeth Warren, who was like really close to a lot of Bernie on the issues. And I think had a lot of cross-pollination
run in 2016, by the way.
And I had a lot of like, I think you would do a lot of like hindsight stuff, but I don't want to like get into right now about that. But let me just finish here. It's just like Elizabeth Warren also not, making some sort of deal with Bernie to where we consolidate all of that support behind one of the candidates
and do the exact opposite.
And doing the exact opposite was also what led to Bernie's demise in 2016 and 2020 especially. And so I think in 2028 in the Democratic primary, there needs to be one, I hate to make it sound like this, but it needs to be one true progressive. And whoever is not that person who does not have that appeal is going to have to, we're going to have to boss hog it, right? Like, okay, if you bow out, I'm going to promise you the nicest cabinet position that makes sense for what you do. Like, if AOC has to make Ro Khanna the DOJ head, then like, so be it. But like one of them has to get out, and it's going to have to be the strongest one who stays in. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I don't think it's very possible to disagree with that. I don't know. It's always hard for me when it's someone who's in Congress, not the Senate, and then it's like they're going to be the person running, because it's like one of the things that kind of has sunk a lot of people in the past is that they could very easily say the electability issue, right? Is that they haven't even won statewide office. And it's harder to make the case for yourself as someone who can win an election, which we saw with Biden. That was the thing that brought him over the line. Or dragged him over the line. His handlers were dragging him over the line. But the thing that really dragged him over the line is a lot of people said, I like Bernie, I like Warren, I like whoever it is, but I feel like Biden's the one that can win. And I think the electability issue, it's harder. But I don't think there really is somebody that I can think of that has won statewide office. It isn't just a congressional person that could take that progressive mantle.
I think what I say to that is we are in an environment to where we would not be having this conversation if Stephen Colbert ran for office, or if like Jon Stewart ran for office. Like I think in 20,
I wouldn't want them to run for office.
Well, I don't necessarily want them to either, but I think the fact is that this is a country that I think, especially after 3 Trump participating elections, is across the board a lot more amenable to just having a celebrity public figure with no experience whatsoever put their hat into the ring. Now, I think the Democrats are going to be a little bit more resistant than like the Republicans would be. My examples being the results of the 2016 and 2024 elections, but I still think that you would get like, I mean to point out here that like AOC has, I've never been a big person of like the presidency needs a lot of experience. I think the presidency needs to be someone who knows what to delegate what to 100%. And to put good people in that position, and to have that good sense of like humility and good network to put the right people in the right place to get them to do the right thing. And so like I look at that. I think AOC has that ability to, and I think she just has to like word it that way and demonstrate it that way. Because that was kind of the allure of Donald Trump. Like, oh, he's a business person. He always hires. He literally had a game show where it was all about hiring the right person to be your apprentice,
and
right?
And firing the people that out of line.
And he makes it interesting. and he says what he wants to. Yeah, so there's all of these different things there.
You know that video?
I don't
video where he's like he's doing that you're fired, but it's like he's doing it sound like
he's just mouthing it.
Yeah.
I think I may have seen it, but I've knocked out so much Trump from my brain as much as I can. So yeah,
I agree with you about that. I would like to see AOC take affirmative positions and not do the word salad thing, because I think that kind of I'd like to see her have a platform and stand on business, as they say, with that platform, because I think with AOC a lot of times she tends to do the word salad thing, and like I don't think that's going to cut it. I think she's going to have to take strong positions, stick to those positions in the way that Bernie did when running for president. I'm not saying since then, because not so much, but
also like he's not going to run for president again. Like he's like,
and I don't think the person needs. I don't think the progressive, the progressive running in that situation needs to be Bernie again, right? Like I don't think that's not what I'm saying, but I do think the word salad thing, it turns people off because they think either you don't know what you're talking about and you're stalling, or they say, all right, well, this person's going to back out of whatever it is. And I would like to see AOC be more of that leader that can actually say, like, no, I believe in this thing, and this thing. And she believes in a lot of the right things, but the way that she gets there verbally a lot of times doesn't necessarily instill confidence that she's going to, be the most likely person to say, like, no, we're doing this.
Yeah. We will talk about this much more, but we have.
I have something to say about the ice warehouse story.
Okay, I want to, because we have passed the 2-hour mark that even I thought this was going to be, and we have things to do, and I have caffeinated tea to drink, so
and movies to see.
Yes. I guess I've invited myself on to movie night extravaganza whenever y'all do cover Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
Conan liked it. Conan said it was great.
Yeah, we're about to see it right now. It's got some pretty good scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it's not a stinker, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But we got that to do. But I want to end. We have like different segments within PowerPoint. There's like a global one, a domestic one. We do one that's funny. It's literally internally called the poop report, and this time that was very literal. But this is the one that I want to make sure that we did, especially for the next couple of years, is just to make sure that we're highlighting the resistance actually working and doing good things. And
I have an example of
let me just set up this article that we're looking at right here, and then please go in. I want you to.
I wonder if they're going to talk about the exact thing that I was going to say in this article. But
Marshall Project is reporting that ICE is buying warehouses and different communities are fighting back. We kind of talked about this a little bit, that in a number of different places. This article talks about an industrial row in Surprise, Arizona, a suburb of Phoenix, where they're getting this little warehouse in a district around with a bunch of beverage trucks that's being bought by the DHS for $70 million in cash in order to store migrants, and honestly people, because honestly anyone's being arrested by ICE. Through a quote here, and then I'll let Forrest jump in. Over 100 local residents spoke out against the effort during a 5-hour surprise city council meeting earlier this month, raising concerns that ran the gamut. Some people worried about the detainees with a criminal history being held in the community. Some people pointed to the possible strain on water, sewer, electrical infrastructure, traffic, and emergency services. One speaker cited lost revenue. The federal government is exempt from local taxes. But most people offered broader condemnations of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement crackdown and simply didn't want the project to be a part of the town's legacy. So people really showed out for coming against this, and some of them had like more libertarian conservative reasons, but other ones like
funny. It's very funny that it's the
federal government doesn't pay taxes for this.
Well, no, it's the NIMBY constituency coming together with the with the pro immigration constituency.
And you know what, we're gonna have to dap up this time. It's fine. It's gonna have to work out, right?
Not in my backyard, sir. I think we should deport them, but we should keep them somewhere else.
Oh, the leftists are like, you know what? In this case, not in our backyard. We do something else with them after they're out of our backyard. But let's make a case here. But yeah, you once I was even getting ready to do this story, you had some stuff to say on this. I see you're pulling up an article here.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Hundreds rally in New Windsor against ICE expansion in the Hudson Valley. 15
New Windsor. This would be New York, right?
Yeah. So this is in Orange County, New York, which is about an hour north of the city. It's kind of near where I live in the Hudson Valley, mid-Hudson Valley, and about 250 people gathered Monday afternoon this week outside an office building in New Windsor to protest the presence of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement in the Hudson Valley, marking the latest in a series of regional demonstrations of opposing the agency's expanding operations in Orange County. The big this is by the river, by the way. Yeah.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. Sorry.
And so they're trying to build like one of those ICE facilities and data centers. That's all we build anymore. But they're trying to protest against. I like that the thing that they captured in the front of the ground, by the way, in this, which you can see all the people behind them, but the foreground is the Tesla Cybertruck.
Horrifying.
Yeah, so people were lining up around an office, and started with 250, and they're projecting that more and more people are going to join these protests. And in this case, it's very much an anti-ICE thing. They don't want they don't want a lot of they don't want one of these centers, which I mean nobody really does, right? Like it's basically and the DSA is involved with this as well, which you can see in the article. One of the co-chairs of the Mid-Hudson Valley DSA, which has grown pretty exponentially in the last few years. Like they started with tenants' rights stuff, and the tenants' rights they got an ordinance passed in Kingston, where my brother lives, which basically was like a rent stabilization thing like they have in New York City. And then the mayor, without any kind of, they passed it, and then the mayor like vetoed it, and it's been a big thing in Kingston. But DSA was kind of at the center of that, as well as my new mayor, Alex. So they're gonna put one into Chester, and there's a detention center. It's one of those warehouses. I think it's the same thing. They're buying up a warehouse, and a lot of people have started really protesting it. And one of the big things about Orange County right now is it's the place where Eric Adams basically has been sending migrants that come to the city, and he's like, there's not enough space for them, and then he sent them up to Orange County. So it's kind of big that that they're the ones that are saying, look, we don't want a detention center to take in all these immigrants that have been being sent up here. We don't want ICE in our area. So I don't know. I felt like even on a local level, right? Like it's part of this big growing thing. And when you're in a place that, these are not like large cities or anything, right? Like 250 is a lot of people to stand up.
Yeah. And, there's like, sort of a calculus that has been talked about on other shows in a lot of different cases where if you write an email, that has a certain amount of weight, and then if you send a letter, like a physical letter, that has a little bit more weight than that, that's maybe like a unit of like 10 emails,
especially if it's strongly worded.
Yeah, strongly worded, maybe that's like 20 emails. A strongly worded letter is maybe a 20-word email.
A strongly worded letter.
And then maybe I'll do a strongly. Sorry, let me do the.
I'm Schumering.
Maybe I'll do a strongly worded letter. The Baileys. Okay. No, but like, and like every little bit of you're gonna hurt your eyes by doing that, brother.
I'm not putting on this. Maybe I'll write a strongly worded letter. No more ICE detention centers no more ICE. No more well, I wrote a strongly worded letter. I don't know what else I could do.
We will win. We will win. We won't rest.
We will nap. A nap is not the same thing.
The Baileys. I just want the Baileys.
Yeah, I really cannot see a damn thing in your glasses.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. I told you I'm damn blind. Those aren't even my good ones. That's impressive.
I'm Schumering.
Let's put that on the social media.
Trump's gonna know there's two Schumers in the house now.
Make sure you caption it and use one of the F words. You know which one. Not that one. The other one.
We won't fail. We won't fail.
My heart jumped when you said that the first time. I was like, oh God, where are we going? No. So yeah, you are seeing people fight back. So like what I was getting at is that like a letter is worth maybe 10 emails hypothetically. People in person who are coming in multitudes, who are speaking about the same thing, who are coordinated, whether they're wearing the same shirts or they're expressing the same message, that has the value of, frankly, thousands of social media posts, hundreds of emails, and tens of letters. Like that has so much more value. So It's
I
good that
think
people are
about,
fighting back with this thing. It's good that
the-
people are fighting back with
I
this
think
things.
about Woody Guthrie's son, Arlo Guthrie, has Alice's restaurant. And he says, think about it. If one person goes into their local draft board and sings a verse of Alice's restaurant and walks out, you know, they're gonna think he's crazy. But if two people walk in and sing a verse of Alice's restaurant, they're gonna think they're gay and they won't take either of them in the draft. He's like, but if 50 people walk in and sing a verse of Alice's restaurant, could you imagine it? Well, they'll think it's a movement, and that's what it is.
The one weird thing about streaming is you can't just like go to commercial when you have nothing else to say. So I just gotta keep rolling here.
Well, isn't that when like Hassan will pull up a clip? He has like a bunch of someone sends him a clip.
Meanwhile, I want to say this is in Texas. Hundreds of students have been suspended and schools have closed. Schools are under close watch over anti-ICE walkouts. And hundreds of K through
Pritzker's on the Ozempic, isn't he?
I'm not gonna touch that one. like that guy in
I call it how I see it.
Like that guy in Mad Men just goes.
I don't have the stomach for it.
Hundreds of K-12 students across the country have received detention or suspension after participating in classroom walkouts to protest ICE. Let's see. Oklahoma governor wrote in support of a superintendent for an Oklahoma school district for suspending over 100 students for walking out of class to protest. In Northern Virginia, more than 300 were suspended after a walkout at
the quote was
Woodbridge Senior High School.
Free speech is sacred, but truancy. Wait, this is free speech is sacred, but truancy robs your future. It's just like an old man thing. Remember, free speech is sacred, but truancy robs your future. Stay in school, build skills, and write a strongly worded letter.
Now remember, democracy is sacred, but get back to picking cotton. Yeah. Like, you know, well, human rights are valuable, but keep working in my farms.
I was thinking about this because I saw a clip online of fucking Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful over there, scolding some black woman that was on MSNBC with him, and he's like, isn't it great that we live in America, not China, where you're able to use your voice to talk about this? It's like everyone that tells you, isn't it great, you could like interrupts you by telling you like, isn't it great you can use your voice in America? They never want you to use your voice.
That's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah, 300 suspended in Northern Virginia. The Clovis Police Department in California is filing charges against parents who joined a student walkout, according to the Fresno Beast, like in Central California area. David Law, superintendent of the Minnetonka School District in Minnesota, where else, who has dealt with walkouts throughout his time in the education system, says his schools have always coordinated with students to ensure safety. The intent is really to be noticed, to make a statement, Law said. Adding that students who hold the walkouts during school because that's when everyone is around and quote they know it'll be irritating. Our response has been in the districts I've worked in, connecting with the student organizers and saying, what's your goal? And as a reminder, there's an expectation that while you're at school during school hours, kids that don't want to participate should have a right to participate in their classes undisrupted. And so yeah, even people who have like dealt with school walkouts before are saying like this is a step a little bit too far here. So I'm just happy to see these students like standing up for themselves and fighting for a lot of these things.
I mean, it's very like there's the alternative version of, you know, handling this, where you say that civic responsibility is a big part of all this stuff, and it's like, you know, by walking out, students are displaying a thing that could be used as a lesson in civics, right? Like not that the school is necessarily fully condoning and saying, hey, every student needs to walk out, but it is in its own way. Like colleges often do this, right? Like a day of protests, professors will be like, well, you get extra credit, or you get credit for being here by protesting because it's a lesson in civic responsibility. But of course, in a partisan society, how can you really, you know?
Yeah. I did want to acknowledge, because this is around where we're going to wrap it up, but Jesse Jackson passed. And I think in the kind of like taking stock, sort of like accounting of in the taking stock and accounting of the life of Jesse Jackson, it's kind of generally come out positive. You know, the talk about the Rainbow Coalition being first for a lot of assertions of Palestinian liberation before a lot of other politicians did.
Fucking scared him for that one.
Chuck Schumer didn't.
Yeah, oh, he does. When it comes time to talk about his meeting with the PLO, Chuck Schumer is suddenly not about writing strongly worded letters. He's about asserting himself forcefully in the space.
I just find it interesting that the young people in my party actually had arguments with me. And that's the thing I find interesting. That was the thing that I find annoying, is that people in my own party argued with me over my stance on human rights, mattering to some people, but not others.
Well,
in the 90s.
He said the classic the classic quote, I consider it a main part of my job to keep the left pro-Israel.
Which, you know, like, yeah, and that's like been a more recent one, but like even in the past, like in the 90s, like
I watched me and Christina have our absurdity space show, obviously, that we do on this space, absurdity space, Wednesdays at 6 Eastern. But we had that show, and we watched Jesse Jackson doing the Keep Hope Alive speech, and then we watched Chuck Schumer's response to like his meeting with the Yasser Arafat or whatever, you know, at the UN. And I was like, the Chuck Schumer's like speech in this case made me like 10% anti-Semitic, like.
And that is what Forrest said.
Well, I said it live on air already. So
I want to play, and I'll try not to pause this, but it's like a kind of a longer video. But this is Jesse Jackson speaking. Let me get the context again.
I'm speaking.
It was his 1984 DNC speech, talking about foreign policy.
Is this the whole
apartheid South Africa?
Because Keep Hope Alive, I think, was the 1984 DNC speech he did.
I'm not sure, and this is only like 5 minutes of what was probably a longer speech. So I'll run through it.
We drop.
Oh, sorry, I forgot that we're doing this thing. Thanks for bearing with us as we do this like in-person setup here, but there we go.
We dropped the bomb on Japan and felt guilty. But in 1984, other folks also got bombs. This time, if we dropped the bomb 6 minutes later, we too will be destroyed. It's not about dropping the bomb on somebody. It's about dropping the bomb on everybody. We must choose to develop minds over guided missiles and think it out and not fight it out. It's time for a change. Our foreign policy must be characterized by mutual respect, not by gunboat diplomacy, big stick diplomacy, and threats. Our nation at its best feeds the hungry. Our nation at its worst will mine the harbors of Nicaragua. At its worst, will try to overthrow that government. At its worst, will cut aid to American education and increase aid to El Salvador. At its worst, our nation will have partnership with South Africa. That's a moral disgrace. It's a moral disgrace. It's a moral disgrace. We look at Africa. We cannot just focus on apartheid in Southern Africa. We must fight for trade with Africa and not just aid to Africa. We cannot stand idly by and say we will not relate to Nicaragua unless they have elections there and then embrace military regime in Africa, overthrowing democratic governments in Nigeria and Liberia and Ghana. We must fight for democracy all around the world and play the game by one set of rules. Peace in this world. Our present formula for peace in the Middle East is inadequate. It will not work. There are 22 nations in the Middle East. Our nation must be able to talk
and act and influence all of them. We must build upon Camp David and measure human rights by one yardstick. In that region, we have too many interests and too few friends. There's a way out: jobs, put America back to work. Now, as a child growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, Reverend Sample used to preach ever so often a sermon relating to Jesus, and he said, "If I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me." I didn't quite understand what he meant as a child growing up, but I understand a little better now. If you raise up truth, it's magnetic. It has a way of drawing people. With all this confusion and this conviction and bright lights and parties and big fun, we must raise up the simple proposition: if we lift up a program to feed the hungry, they'll come running. If we lift up a program to study war no more, our youth will come running. If we lift up a program to put America back to work as an alternative to welfare and despair, they will come working. If we cut that military budget without cutting our defense and use that money to rebuild bridges and put steel workers back to work, and use that money and provide jobs for our cities, and use that money to build schools and pay teachers and educate our children and build hospitals and train doctors and train nurses, the whole nation will come running to us.
I like that bit that he's saying at the end there, where it's like, if we just do things that take care of people and respect people's human rights, the votes will come.
Yeah.
And I think that's really amazing. I want to shout out, for producing the whole show, but especially for getting this clip together, Sachi, that for our producer Sachi, for putting this one here, because it is so it's just so resonant to what was already obvious back then to what we're doing right now. And we talked earlier on this episode about how even in the 1790s, it was apparent that political parties were going to ruin this country, going to mess it up for irreparably in that sense, right? We're looking at 1984, July 1984, when this speech was given, before either of us were born. And this is Jesse Jackson's talking about a populist politics that was, for any of its faults, its biggest one was probably being just too early for its time.
Yeah.
And right now we still have not yet to see that proven, unfortunately.
He ran 1984. Obviously, he came in third, I believe, after Gary. What the fuck? He was the former
Busey.
I'm kidding. No, but he came. He came in. It was basically he felt like it was anointed to Mondale because
Gary Shandling.
He felt like he was like Mondale was basically anointed and was kind of bitter about that. But then 1988, which is when he gave the Keep Hope Alive speech, I was wrong. That was his DNC speech. He came in second. Like he was the second place finisher, the same as he was basically the Bernie Sanders of that election cycle, coming in second to Biden. And although I don't know if he's a Dukakis was his good friend or anything, or if they even really knew each other before that. But
check out my Dukakis.
But I don't know. At that point, he was on fire. Like he was, he was the first African American man to run a campaign for the presidency that actually won primaries and caucuses. Before that, obviously, Frederick Douglass had run. Not run away from slave masters, but I mean run he had to run for the presidency. Well, he did both, but it was not taken seriously in its time, and he wasn't there. There obviously wasn't a primary system to run through. So Jesse Jackson was the first African American man to run and win, multiple primaries and caucuses.
Yeah. And so, rest in power, Jesse Jackson, for sure.
Bernie Sanders ended up being one of the few white elected officials to actually publicly endorse Jesse Jackson.
And he has repeatedly cited Jesse Jackson for a lot of the inspiration for his campaign. Of course, I mentioned the Rainbow Coalition, this idea of you're bringing people from a bunch of different racial groups together into a political coalition, and understanding that much like his Sesame Street, like I Am Somebody, which is rooted in so much other different left protest chants and teachings and thoughts that I don't even want to mention here right now at this point, just for sake of time. But Bernie Sanders has cited the Jesse Jackson campaign and the overall political project as like a big influence for the stuff that he worked on. And so
which made it such a big deal that and the media barely covered it right before Super Tuesday. Jesse Jackson endorsed Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign, and it was like this full circle kind of coming around, because Sanders had been one of the only white elected officials to endorse Jesse Jackson in 1988, and after that, right, Jesse Jackson was like the path forward through progressive politics is through Bernie Sanders, and of course it did not go with the narrative that they were trying to push about the Sanders campaign on mainstream media, so it was not covered as a kind of shaking event that it should have been.
Yeah, I was gonna say I literally did not even know that until you just told it just now. Yeah. So it's just kind of goes. I mean, there's a lot of personal reasons why I didn't know that. I was transitioning out of news at that point, as a proper job I was doing all the time. But also I think what we were saying about how the media was kind of not really putting that whole story together in a way they definitely would if it was if a rival,
Biden, right?
Or if it was a rivalry on ESPN. Right. This is just a thing you would do in news, regardless if you're just kind of trying to tell a story and do a little bit of a narrative, if not a bias, just okay, what's the significance of this? What are the callbacks? What are the references? What are the recipes here? It goes back to how, we used to live in a society and now we let dog shit in the snow.
But I mean, that was a good bringing it full circle. I guess I shouldn't have said anything. But no, it was one of the narratives they were pushing at the time for the Sanders campaign is these are overly educated, downwardly mobile white young male voters that are really going for Sanders and in droves, which I mean they were, but they ignored all of the different people of color that had endorsed him. The fact that young black voters came out in force for Sanders, while older black voters obviously voted for Biden, but the older black voters voting for Biden got a lot of coverage, whereas the way that Sanders is actually doing better this time and actually speaking to communities of color in a way that that was never kind of covered in that way, or that in 2016 he wasn't really able to, right? He was not doing that well in 2016 with voters of color connecting in the same way that he was in 2020, and yet the narrative ended up being the same because the media wanted to push that narrative. They did a good job with the Bernie Bro thing in 2016, and they
also the Bernie Bros did a good job with the Bernie Bro thing.
Yeah,
I even look back in ways I didn't really fully acknowledge back then about how a lot the sort of and this is why I want to say the Jasmine Crockett thing for something I can sit on for a little while, especially after this primary happens in a couple weeks or so. But I sit somewhere in between the overall, a lot of politics. I am to the left of even a lot of black people in my social and economic class. I'm still very much to the left, I am with much of society. That doesn't really change for black establishment or my friends and family and close associates who share that part of their family history with me in that way. But there is still, I say in between that position and the position that a lot of the Bernie Sanders people were just not speaking right to in ways that
including Bernie himself.
And yeah, including Bernie himself. I think that moment where he was approached by Black Lives Matter people on stage was both a way to say okay, this is a moment and a representation of Bernie's awkwardness and appealing to the black vote, but also I commend him for the way he dealt with that afterwards of actually not kicking them and trying to get them arrested off the stage, but then meeting with them afterwards and actually incorporating a lot of what they were saying during the Black Lives Matter movement into his campaign going forward. And that that takes time and a reputation to build, and that
He
is a
did-
thing that's going to be seen
he
by a
did
lot of
not
people.
even- he-
Black
I
people are
will
not a
say,
monolith. Yeah.
He did not even give that that level of any kind of recognition to the Arab students that flew a Palestinian flag at one of his big rallies in 2016 that he just got kicked out, like point blank. So there was definitely there were issues that I think he started to address in 2020, but at the same time, it's like there's a certain level of deference that the black establishment political class I think could have been treated with by Bernie Sanders' campaign. At least acknowledging that in a certain way that I think that establishment Democrats, because they've kind of built up this grouping right within. I've been very good at, like, they've been very good at this kind of certain kind of politics, and I think in some ways it definitely is that progressive politicians going forward could learn from that as a constituency. Not that I'm in favor of any kind of that identity politics kind of thing, like the way that that's done, because in New York City especially, I think it's been damaging that voters are seen as ethnic blocks, and I don't really like that as like a thing going forward. But I don't know. I think that like there's a certain way that things have been done that I think you can't knock over if you want to get certain constituencies to support you and feel like their issues are, handled.
Exactly. Well, that podcast that we knew would be at least an hour and a half that I predicted earlier would be 2 hours has now almost hit 3 hours. So I think it's time for us to wrap it in the bag. But it's amazing that regardless of our internal politics of like either of us yapping on for too long and trying to get a word in edgewise, there's never a moment where I'm bored of what you're saying. I'm always
Back at
learning.
you.
Yeah, I'm always learning new stuff from you. You make points excellently well.
Sometimes I'm surprised by what comes out of my mouth.
Forrest, a good friend, movie night extravaganza, absurdity space on this space dot. I think it's this space.tv.
This
but
Space
also,
TV,
yeah, that's a website. But look at this space TV on YouTube. Most of these different things, including movie night extravaganza, exist on YouTube. And now the only other thing is for me to shoot to myself in the edit in case I'm going to add something before or after this, and for us to do our little in-person review of Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
Yeah.
Which just like, I'm rarely a person to watch films as soon as they come out. I like the feeling of not being mainstream. Like, when one battle after another came out and there was so much discourse. There was flying discourse in either direction. I knew for a fact, I was like, I want to watch this when everyone is shut up.
I watched it and then went live with you for like 90 minutes after I watched it.
I do remember that, yes. So yeah, I'm going to and I watched it on a plane 2 days ago. And it was a great time. So I'm looking forward to that experience, and I want to thank y'all for watching live as we're recording this on the replay wherever this is playing. Thank you to all the members on syndicate23.co, YouTube, and Twitch. And yeah, thank you. Let's see. Bad Lefty, Reference Frame, Cosmopolitics, even for calling us you for earlier or whatever reason. Pinkerbell, Soul Life, Paige Larson, and everyone else who is watching here. Pep Talks TV, Mono. Hopefully I got everybody. If not, you, especially you, the person I missed, are loved and appreciated. And we will see you.
And you are somebody.
You are somebody.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And see you on the social media.
We're humoring.
All right, peace.